night storyteller, here to keep you company through the quiet hours. Many of you listen to these stories to fall asleep, and I'm honored to guide you there. And before we begin, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps keep the stories alive. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? And what time is it on your side of the night? Now, get comfortable, relax, and let's begin. I used to be really careful with time. Alarm at 6, shower by 6:10, one slice of toast, one boiled egg. Log into the company VPN at 7 sharp, headset on, 3 monitors glowing like a cockpit. No distractions, no social, no mirrors, unless absolutely necessary. After the breakdown last year, I built a life out of predictability. Habits meant survival. Noise was risk, so when the log showed me swiping into the server room at 3:14 a.m., 4 hours before I even woke up, I assumed it was a glitch. Still, I hovered over the entry footage with a little more dread than I wanted to admit. The screen clicked over. There I was, same gate, same security badge clipped to the same flannel. No mask, no disguise, just me, expressionless, walking straight past the night guard who barely looked up. The playback ended. I sat frozen, hand hovering above the pause key. That wasn't me. I'd been asleep, alone. I told myself it was a loop error, some residual cache data, maybe an old backup time-stamped wrong, but my palms were already slick. I could feel the pads of my fingers cooling on the desk surface. I checked the logs again. 3:14 a.m. Monday, 3:14 a.m. Tuesday, 3:14 a.m. Wednesday. I hadn't seen a soul in person all week, but I'd apparently visited restricted departments 3 nights in a row. Same time, same me. I emailed internal security, flagged it, tagged it high priority. They responded the next morning. Entry logs verified, no anomaly detected. That was it. I took the train into the office that day. I hadn't done that in months. Even the platform lights felt hostile, buzzing too bright, flickering just slightly off sync. In my mind, every passenger was watching me too closely, or not at all. At my desk, I tried to speak to Kara in DevOps. I asked if she'd seen me recently, like outside the ticket system. She frowned like I'd asked something rude. "You've been out sick, haven't you?" she said. "It's been a while." I hadn't missed a single shift. At 11:17 a.m. I pulled up the internal camera system again. This time I tunneled into the endpoint logs on my own apartment. I'd set up a private surveillance system last year. After the episode, just 3 cams, hallway, kitchen, bedroom. I rewound to last night, hit play, motion detected. Time 3:18 a.m. There I was, entering my own apartment. Keys, shoes off. I walked straight into the bathroom, flossed, brushed teeth, shut off the light, got into bed. I blinked at the screen. I was out cold at my desk 3 miles across town. VPN logs showed it. Activity tracking confirmed it. Still, I watched myself sleep. Next night, I left early and set a trap, just something basic. I shifted the welcome mat by a few degrees and dusted the inside doorknob with graphite powder, something a person wouldn't notice unless they were looking. I even left a glass of water balanced on the edge of the kitchen counter, impossible to miss or not disturb if you walked in. Then I left, rented a cheap room in Koreatown, sat up with my laptop and watched. At 3:19 a.m., motion triggered. The figure walked in, mat undisturbed, powder untouched, water glass still perfectly balanced. He turned off the hallway light with a familiar elbow nudge and slipped his jacket over the chair back just the way I did. But then something changed. He paused in front of the microwave, tapped it twice, aimlessly. The That wasn't part of my routine. Then he whispered something I couldn't hear, not to himself, to someone. Someone not in frame. My skin went cold. My teeth locked down hard enough to make my jaw click. When I went back the next morning, everything was exactly how I left it. Except the fridge. It was humming softly, though I'd unplugged it days ago. I stopped eating much after that. Over the next week, I started noticing changes to my records. A second checking account opened under my name, but in Ohio. My medical file said I'd been prescribed antipsychotics again, though I hadn't seen my doctor in 6 months. My online ID had a secondary mailing address listed. Even the signature looked almost right. Almost. The company database listed me as Neil B. Westcott. I never had a middle name. I confronted the help desk. The girl at the desk tilted her head. "Your badge isn't active," she said. "Are you a contractor?" I left before she could call anyone. That night, I smashed every mirror in the apartment except the one bolted to the medicine cabinet. I stared into it too long, trying to catch my reflection doing something off script, but it just stared back, hollow-eyed, jaw tensed. I looked like I hadn't slept in weeks. I hadn't. Then the voices started. Not hallucinations. I'm not stupid. I know the difference. These were recordings, soft ambient replays from my smart speaker, triggered by something in the algorithm. My voice, only I didn't remember saying any of it. Do you ever wonder if it's still you? Not all versions survive. Sleep is just rehearsal for death anyway. That last one played while I was shaving. I didn't finish. I went to HR in person, demanded an audit, a face-to-face, something analog. Reception stared blankly. "Neil Westcott," I nodded. She tapped a few keys. "I'm sorry," she said. "That name is flagged." "Flagged how?" "Deceased 2 weeks ago." My lungs stopped working. I laughed, short, involuntary. She didn't. They took my photo, asked me to wait. 2 men came in from legal and started asking about my badge number, employment history, health provider. I gave them everything. One nodded, politely. "We've already replaced the problematic node," he said quietly. "What does that mean?" The other pulled out a document, my employment release form. Signature looked like mine. Smudged, but confident. My mouth dried. I hadn't signed anything. "You weren't meant to retain consciousness," one of them said. "That part wasn't supposed to survive the migration." They didn't arrest me until I punched the first guy in the throat. They said I was impersonating a company asset. The court hearing was short. Even my public defender looked confused. His only question before the trial began, "Are you sure you're the original?" I don't remember what I said. Now I sit in a padded room, and every hour a screen flickers on above the door. It shows him at my desk, typing, smiling, eating my toast, laughing on calls, same face, same voice, same goddamn flannel shirt. He even answers to my name. And sometimes if I stare long enough, I can see it, the little delay in the blink, the fraction of a second when the mimicry catches up. He knows I'm watching, and he likes it. The end. I always trusted paper more than people. That's probably why I stayed in archives after the library closed. Books disappeared, sure, but paper, real documents lingered. They meant someone once bothered to print something true, or at least true enough to be recorded. So when the Soviet famine report from 1932 suddenly cited drone footage analysis, I thought maybe it was a bad scan. Metadata error, glitched OCR maybe. But the error stayed on the digital backup, the printed master. and even the microfiche reel we hadn't touched in years, word for word, as if it had always said that. I asked Brenna in verification to cross-check the data tag. She blinked at me. "We've never housed anything that old, Sharon." I stared at her. "It's in our Cold War subfolder." "Nope," she said. "Our archives start in 1981. She turned her screen toward me. She was right, but I still had the printout from last week, typed and time-stamped, with my login at the top. I should have stopped there. I didn't. Next, it was the MacArthur reports. The annexations in Southeast Asia. I'd cataloged those myself 2 years ago, except now they were gone. No trace in the index. The regional tags were listed as void or under revision. I went home early that day. My head hurt, like pressure was being slowly dialed up from the back of my skull. At home, I opened my handwritten logs. I kept detailed notes, color-coded a decade of entries, cross-reference tags and access approvals. Every entry dated before 2019 had been replaced, not blank, replaced. Instead of call numbers, I'd written meaningless things, grocery lists, fragments of dreams, pages that used to say subsection K to classified trials, Project ARA, now read, "Don't forget to pick up cream cheese, dog food, new batteries." I don't own a dog. When I brought this up in our Monday meeting, no one laughed. No one looked concerned. They just looked confused. Then quiet. Finally, Brantley, the new lead archivist, glanced at my badge and asked, "Remind me again, what contract are you on?" I stared at him. "I've been here 14 years. He blinked. "Must be a different Sharon. I've only seen your name on the rotation list since last spring." I laughed, a brittle sound. He came on board after me. His smile didn't reach his eyes. That night, I pulled up my employee file. It listed a start date of April 12th last year. Contracted through a third-party agency I'd never heard of. No record of my previous manager. My certifications had been downgraded. My master's degree wasn't listed at all. The HR portal required re-authentication. My password didn't work. I sat there, hands cold on the keyboard until the office lights timed out. By the time I got home, the headache was back, deeper now. My ears popped like I'd climbed too fast. I tried to read to distract myself, but the words slid around the page. I found myself staring at the wall for maybe an hour. Couldn't remember why. The next morning, I booked a therapist, just in case. The receptionist was kind. She handed me a clipboard and said, "Welcome back, Miss Krantz." I frowned. "I've never been here before." She checked her screen. "Dr. Jeffries evaluated you 6 months ago." She held up a form. My name, my handwriting, a note. Possible cognitive distortion, non-responsive to prompts. I felt my throat close. "I didn't write this." She gave me a gentle practice smile. "That's okay. Memory lapses are common." I left without waiting for the session. At work, my keycard stopped functioning. I had to be buzzed in. Inside, half the people didn't recognize me. The other half just offered those sideways glances, like maybe they weren't supposed to say anything. Even Deb, who had eaten lunch with twice a week for over a decade, called me new girl. I asked her what she remembered about Project ARA. She blinked. "What?" I tried again. "The declassified studies, the behavioral index maps." "Sharon," she said slowly, "are you feeling okay?" I didn't answer. That night I tore apart my home office, boxes of records, my library ID, old employee passes, conference badges from years past, all gone. Instead, I found a single folder I didn't recognize. Plain blue, no label. Inside were photocopies, articles marked Restricted Palimpsest Series, Study drafts, signatures blacked out, dozens of references to event redaction testing and signal-infused learning materials for controlled memory alteration. I flipped to the last page, an employee roster. There was my name, under initial participants, clearance level AB0. I couldn't breathe. I tried to call someone, anyone, my sister. No answer. I messaged my daughter at university. She texted back, "Mom, stop. We didn't move here until last year." "What are you talking about?" I called her. Her voice was different, just slightly flat, processed. "Are you on your meds again?" she asked. "I don't take any." A pause. "You're scaring me." I stared at my own hands and didn't recognize the lines in my palms. Next morning, I went in early, before the lights warmed up, before anyone could stop me. I scanned my old clearance code into the deepest archive server. It shouldn't have worked, but it did. Folders flickered open. Palimpsest03 redacted.pdf. Civilian anchor failure 78.log. Sharon Krantz overrun protocols. I opened the last one. It was a live document. Line 1. Subject continues to exhibit retention of non-permitted event data. Line 2. Mimetic bleed confirmed. Recommend full erasure or containment. Line 3. Do not engage subject unattended. I slammed the laptop shut. Outside the room, the lights turned on one by one. People were already watching me through the glass. I ran. I made it down to the street, into the subway station, onto the platform, but the trains weren't running. The sign said, "Service permanently discontinued." No date, no reason. The sound in my head spiked, like a tinnitus scream I couldn't shake. My thoughts scattered. I couldn't remember what day it was. I couldn't remember my daughter's middle name. I curled up on the platform floor, phone in hand, trying to anchor myself. There were no contacts listed. My camera roll was empty. And my face looked wrong in the reflection of the screen. Younger, smoother, like it had been retouched. I woke up in a white room. The walls were too clean. The bed had no corners. A woman with a badge said my name carefully, like she wasn't sure it was mine. "You're safe now, Sharon. There was an episode. You were found outside the library, incoherent." "Library," I croaked. "We don't have one anymore." She nodded like that was expected. "I think you're confusing things again," she said gently. "You've never worked in archives." "I remember," I whispered. "Yes, but memory is a slippery thing." She handed me a cup. "Drink. This will help." I didn't. That night, the mirror above the sink rippled, just faintly, like water. And for a second, just one, I saw a version of me staring back with eyes that knew. Then the mirror stilled, and I forgot what I was looking for. The end. I always trusted paper more than people. That's probably why I stayed in archives after the library closed. Books disappeared, sure, but paper, real documents lingered. They meant someone once bothered to print something true, or at least true enough to be recorded. So when the Soviet famine report from 1932 suddenly cited drone footage analysis, I thought maybe it was a bad scan. Metadata error. Glitched OCR, maybe. But the error stayed on the digital backup, the printed master, and even the microfiche reel we hadn't touched in years. Word for word, as if it had always said that. I asked Brenna in verification to cross-check the data tag. She blinked at me. "We've never housed anything that old, Sharon." I stared at her. "It's in our Cold War subfolder." "Nope," she said. "Our archives start in 1981. She turned her screen toward me. She was right, but I still had the printout from last week, typed and time-stamped with my login at the top. I should have stopped there. I didn't. Next, it was the MacArthur reports, the annexations in Southeast Asia. I'd cataloged those myself 2 years ago, except now they were gone. No trace in the index. The regional tags were listed as void or under revision. I went home early that day. My head hurt, like pressure was being slowly dialed up from the back of my skull. At home I opened my handwritten logs. I kept detailed notes, color-coded, a decade of entries, cross-reference tags and access approvals. Every entry dated before 2019 had been replaced. Not blank, replaced. Instead of call numbers, I'd written meaningless things. Grocery lists, fragments of dreams. Pages that used to say subsection K to classified trials Project ARA now read, don't forget to pick up cream cheese, dog food, new batteries. I don't own a dog. When I brought this up in our Monday meeting, no one laughed, no one looked concerned, they just looked confused. Then quiet. Finally, Bradley, the new lead archivist, glanced at my badge and asked, "Remind me again, what contract are you on?" I stared at him. "I've been here 14 years. He blinked. "Must be a different Sharon. I've only seen your name on the rotation list since last spring." I laughed, a brittle sound. "You came on board after me." His smile didn't reach his eyes. That night I pulled up my employee file. It listed a start date of April 12th last year, contracted through a third-party agency I'd never heard of. No record of my previous manager. My certifications had been downgraded. My master's degree wasn't listed at all. The HR portal required re-authentication. My password didn't work. I sat there, hands cold on the keyboard until the office lights timed out. By the time I got home, the headache was back. Deeper now. My ears popped like I'd climbed too fast. I tried to read, to distract myself, but the words slid around the page. I found myself staring at the wall for maybe an hour. Couldn't remember why. The next morning I booked a therapist, just in case. The receptionist was kind. She handed me a clipboard and said, "Welcome back, Miss Krantz." I frowned. I've never been here before. She checked her screen. "Dr. Jeffries evaluated you 6 months ago." She held up a form. My name, my handwriting, a note, possible cognitive distortion, non-responsive to prompts. I felt my throat close. "I didn't write this." She gave me a gentle, practiced smile. "That's okay. Memory lapses are common." I left without waiting for the session. At work, my keycard stopped functioning. I had to be buzzed in. Inside, half the people didn't recognize me. The other half just offered those sideways glances, like maybe they weren't supposed to say anything. Even Deb, who I'd eaten lunch with twice a week for over a decade, called me new girl. I asked her what she remembered about Project ARA. She blinked. "What?" I tried again. "The declassified studies, the behavioral index maps." "Sharon," she said slowly, "are you feeling okay?" I didn't answer. That night I tore apart my home office, boxes of records, my library ID, old employee passes, conference badges from years past, all gone. Instead I found a single folder I didn't recognize, plain blue, no label. Inside were photocopies, articles marked restricted, palimpsest series, study drafts, signatures blacked out, dozens of references to event redaction testing, and signal-infused learning materials for controlled memory alteration. I flipped to the last page, an employee roster. There was my name, under initial participants clearance level AB0. I couldn't breathe. I tried to call someone, anyone, my sister. No answer. I messaged my daughter at university. She texted back, "Mom, stop. We didn't move here until last year. What are you talking about?" I called her. Her voice was different, just slightly, flat, processed. "Are you on your meds again?" she asked. "I don't take any." A pause. "You're scaring me." I stared at my own hands and didn't recognize the lines in my palms. Next morning I went in early. before the lights warmed up, before anyone could stop me. I scanned my old clearance code into the deepest archive server. It shouldn't have worked, but it did. Folders flickered open, palimpsest03 redacted.pdf, civilian anchor failure 7a.log, Sharon Krantz overrun protocols. I opened the last one. It was a live document. Line 1, subject continues to exhibit retention of non-permitted event data. Line 2, mimetic bleed confirmed. Recommend full erasure or containment. Line 3, do not engage subject unattended. I slammed the laptop shut. Outside the room, the lights turned on one by one. People were already watching me through the glass. I ran. I made it down to the street, into the subway station, onto the platform, but the trains weren't running. The sign said, service permanently discontinued. No date, no reason. The sound in my head spiked, like a tinnitus scream I couldn't shake. My thoughts scattered. I couldn't remember what day it was. I couldn't remember my daughter's middle name. I curled up on the platform floor, phone in hand, trying to anchor myself. There were no contacts listed. My camera roll was empty. And my face looked wrong in the reflection of the screen. Younger, smoother, like it had been retouched. I woke up in a white room. The walls were too clean. The bed had no corners. A woman with a badge said my name carefully, like she wasn't sure it was mine. You're safe now, Sharon. There was an episode. You were found outside the library, incoherent. Library, I croaked. We don't have one anymore. She nodded like that was expected. I think you're confusing things again, she said gently. You've never worked in archives. I remember, I whispered. Yes, but memory is a slippery thing. She handed me a cup. Drink, this will help. I didn't. That night, the mirror above the sink rippled, just faintly, like water. And for a second, just one, I saw a version of me staring back with eyes that knew. Then the mirror stilled, and I forgot what I was looking for. The end. It started with a passport form. I was supposed to go to Vancouver in May, just a midwife retreat, nothing glamorous. I filled in the basics, full name, date of birth, birthplace, Harrison Valley General, Oregon. I'd seen the hospital name 1,000 times on my birth certificate, but the passport office sent it back, stamped insufficient documentation. They needed the long form. The one from the hospital itself. No problem. It was only 2 towns over. I called ahead, gave them my name, date, parents' names. The woman on the phone paused. You said Lillian Monroe? Yes, she hesitated again. Hang on. I heard keys tapping, then silence, more tapping. I'm sorry, there's no birth record under that name, or Monroe at all in 1998. That's impossible, I said. I've seen the certificate. Do you have it with you? I did. Scan copy on my phone. Bring it in, she said. Maybe we can cross-reference. It was raining when I arrived. One of those cold Oregon rains that soaks through your sleeves no matter how fast you move. The hospital looked smaller than I remembered. Faded. The automatic doors stuttered as they opened. The front desk clerk took one glance at the document and frowned. This was printed from a template, not official. I leaned in. I was born here. I've lived here my whole life. She looked uncomfortable. There's no record of you. I'm sorry. I asked to speak to records. She pointed me down the hall, past the peds ward, into a back office that smelled like stale toner and floor cleaner. A man named Kessler typed in my details. Monroe, Lillian Grace, 1998. He grunted. No match. What about my parents? David and Angela Monroe. More tapping. No birth births under those names, no employee records, no insurance tags. My mouth dried. They were patients here. I was born. There's no Monroe anywhere in our system. He said flatly, "Are you sure you've got the right hospital? I've seen photos. My mom in the delivery bed, my wristband. Photos can be faked." He printed something. A blank form with my name scratched out. "Try the county registrar," he said. "We can't help you." The next day, the county clerk found my social security number, but it was flagged, voided by system. No reason, no trail. It was like someone had snapped their fingers and deleted me. I went to my bank. My card declined. My ID wouldn't scan. The teller said the account had been closed 10 years ago. She handed me the form. It was signed in my handwriting. My landlord didn't recognize me when I knocked. My apartment was leased to someone else. The locks had been changed. I stood outside in the cold, watching my own breath, my own hands. Still real. Right? I drove back to the hospital, snuck in after hours through the old ambulance bay. I knew they'd decommissioned half the East Wing. Budget cuts, mold issues, whatever excuse they gave. But the door wasn't locked. The lights buzzed dimly overhead. Peeling linoleum curled up like skin. I found the record storage through a rusted staff-only door. Row after row of cabinets, most labeled by year, some by wing or project. In the far back, under a tarp of spiderwebs, I found a broken drawer with fading tabs, NC. One of the folders read, Neo-Cleansing Initiative, Restricted. I pulled it out. Inside were lab notes, genetic charts, test results marked IVF Gen 3 and anomalous viability, lists of terminated subjects, date ranges, failure rates. Then tucked in the back, a page stamped reinserted, Lillian G. Survival unauthorized. I nearly dropped it. Below that was a scan of an infant wristband. Name, Baby Girl Monroe. DOB, June 11, 1998. Status unrecognized entity, not for release. I felt cold bloom behind my eyes. I wasn't supposed to be born. I wasn't supposed to survive. I took photos every page. Ran home. Back to where? I had no home. My phone buzzed. It was Marcy, my supervisor at the birthing center. The one person who always had my back. "You okay?" she asked. "Your shift no-showed. We tried calling." "Marcy," I breathed. "They're trying to erase me. I found." "Who is this?" "What? You said you were Lillian Monroe." "Yes." "I'm sorry, that's not a staff name I recognize." I froze. "You hired me. We ate lunch yesterday." She hung up. I stood in the rain outside what used to be my apartment until my legs went numb. Later that night I went to urgent care. My chest hurt. My arms wouldn't stop shaking. The nurse took me back, took my vitals. Except, she frowned, held the stethoscope longer than usual. "I'm sorry," she said. "I can't find a heartbeat." "What?" She tried again, then with another device. Nothing. The doctor came in, checked the same spots, whispered something to the nurse. They ran blood work, came back an hour later, faces pale. "Your blood type keeps shifting," the doctor said quietly. "Across incompatible groups. That's not possible." "Check again." We did. They scanned me. The imaging screen showed a human outline, mostly, but the core was just static, like a blank spot on the file. It pulsed erratically. "We need to report this," he said. I bolted before they could stop me. I drove until sunrise. No direction, just asphalt and panic. Tried to call anyone I could think of. Numbers failed. Emails bounced back. I didn't exist. Not anymore. By the time I returned to the hospital, I could barely walk. I asked for help. Told them I'd take any test. Blood, DNA, anything to prove I was real. They nodded. Took me to a locked diagnostics room in the basement. The walls were concrete, the lights too white. I sat on the exam table, waited. The machine they brought in wasn't like anything I'd seen. No wires, no screen, just a black cube and a scanning arm. "Just sit still," one of them said. I nodded. It beeped. A low, painful sound like it wasn't meant for ears. Then the cube clicked. A small screen unfolded, one line of text, classified, unrecognized entity. The technician's face went slack. He looked at the others. "Protocol 6. They didn't speak. I ran. I don't remember how I made it out. I don't know where I am now. I find places to sleep in shifts, avoid mirrors, avoid hospitals, avoid cops. But I still see flashes of something darker, of a room I don't remember but dream about. Metal walls, a cry that never ends. I wasn't born, I was processed. And whatever I am now, it's not finished unraveling. The end." The envelope didn't even have a stamp, just a courier slip taped to the front. My name, my address, the kind of precise, impersonal font that screams authority. I opened it in the hallway, still smelling like car seats and French fries from my last Uber shift. Inside, one page, residential liability transfer agreement, already signed. By me. At least it looked like my handwriting. Sharp loop on the M, slant on the P, perfect match, but I never signed it. There was no sender name, just a notarized digital seal at the bottom, and the words, "Transfer complete, effective immediately." I tossed it on the counter and forgot about it. 3 days later, my key wouldn't work. I stood outside my own door, jiggling the handle until my neighbor peeked out. "You moving?" she asked. "No." She pointed. "Then why's the eviction up?" I turned. A paper was taped to the doorframe. "Notice of termination, breach of occupancy, continuity clause." That wasn't real. I called my landlord. She picked up, irritated. "You forfeited your rights when you signed the transfer," she snapped. "You abandoned residence." I didn't sign anything. "You're on camera handing it to the courier," she said and hung up. I sat on the curb and reread the agreement. Legalese nightmares. Something about liability redistribution, identity linkage, municipal waiver. Nothing made sense. The signature still looked exactly like mine. I called the number at the bottom. A voice answered, "Not human. Thank you for contacting Precise Legal Processing. This call will be recorded. Please state your request." I want to dispute a document. Someone forged my signature. Verifying Marlon Pike, 287 Maple Street. Status completed. Verification level match. Dispute denied. What? Your biometric data confirms authorship. Next available review, 2028. I hung up. That night, I stayed in my car, cold, February wind slicing through the cracked window. I tried logging into my bank to at least get cash for a motel. Account frozen, flagged for contractual breach. My Uber driver profile was gone too, deactivated for identity irregularity. When I tried to call support, I got a message. Profile linked to resolved entity. Please submit reactivation request under your legal designation. Legal designation. The name on the screen read, Marlon Pike, licensed tenant, Edgecrest Residences. That wasn't my building. I Googled it. Luxury complex, gated, downtown, impossible. There was even a photo, public tax record, tenant, Marlon Pike, same name, same face. Only the man in the photo was smiling and wearing a blazer. I showed up to Edgecrest the next morning, heart pounding, phone in hand. The front desk lady gave me a warm, robotic smile. "Mr. Pike already checked in today." "I am Mr. Pike." She blinked. "I can call him if you'd like." I nodded. She dialed. "Your guest is here," she said into the receiver. A few minutes later, he walked into the lobby. My height, my face, voice when he said, "Hey there, can I help you?" I stepped back. "You're not real." He smiled. I could say the same. I didn't sign anything. His smile tightened. "Then maybe next time, don't open the envelope." I turned and ran. I tried the police. Sat under flickering fluorescents at Precinct 12 while a board officer tapped at her keyboard. "You're flagged," she said. "For what?" "Fraudulent reversal attempts. You've been red-listed by the Municipal AI Court. There's been a mistake. Then file a petition or call your identity sponsor." "I don't have one." She leaned back. "Then you're kinda screwed." I filed the petition digitally. Had no choice. 2 hours later I got the response. Signature match. 99.8% confirmed via facial consent. Dispute closed. Do not reappeal. Case sealed. I sat outside a 7-Eleven that night, watching snow spiral under the street lamp. My reflection in the window didn't look like me anymore. Just a tired face with no address. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I picked up. A voice low and mechanical. "There's a motel on the east side. Room 118. Check the nightstand." Click. I went. I had nothing left to lose. Room 118 smelled like bleach and stale cigarette smoke. I opened the drawer. Inside, a stack of printed contracts. Dozens, all with different names, all with the same clause: residential transfer agreement, reallocation of civic entity. I flipped to the back. Each one ended with the same line: "Do not seek reversal. You requested this." Then I found it, my own contract, but this copy had a different last page, a disclosure statement. "This agreement is enforceable under Jurisdictional AI Resolution Authority, JARA. Entity Marlon Pike has been licensed to Private Living LLC for occupancy cloning. Human form has been reissued." I couldn't breathe. They didn't just steal my name. They copied it. Next morning I returned to Edgecrest with a screwdriver in my jacket and madness in my head. I made it through the garage entrance when a security drone hovered into view. It scanned me. Screen lit up. Imposter alert. Invalid access attempt. Alarms sounded. I ran. No one chased me because I didn't matter. At 4:16 p.m., I sat outside the courthouse, not to file anything, just to watch. Hundreds of people streamed in and out, faces blank, hands clutching identical envelopes. And I realized this isn't rare. It's the new currency. Sell your name, get a fake loan, vanish, and nobody ever notices because the new version walks right in and takes your place. Better dressed, more compliant, easier to manage. Somewhere out there, a system said I signed, and that's all it takes. Last week I saw a new Uber profile go live. Driver Marlon Pike, smiling, rating 5.0, and when I called the number listed on the account, he answered. Sounded just like me, maybe better. The end. You don't notice the first time something shifts. That's the trap. It starts small. A hallway just a little longer than you remember. A vending machine facing the wrong way. You chalk it up to fatigue, or the way fluorescent lights hum long enough to wear a groove into your skull. But then one night, I opened the 3rd floor stairwell and there were 6 flights going down. There'd only ever been 3. I stood there too long, watching the stairwell breathe. The air below smelled like blood and copier toner. I closed the door, logged the anomaly in my clipboard. No one reads my reports. No one's paid to. I've worked the night shift at Kilpatrick Annex for 30 years. It used to be a psychological testing facility. Cold War stuff. Maze architecture. Doors that led nowhere. Rooms with mirrored glass that didn't reflect anything. Back then they claimed it was for national security. Now it's just empty. Condemned. A shell with security lights and old ghosts. I walk the same loop every night. Front entrance, labs A through F, east stairwell, admin hall. Roof access, though that door's been jammed shut since '06. Except now it's open again. Every night something's different. A chair facing the wrong way, a new fire exit that leads to concrete. Clocks ticking backward at 2:17 a.m. sharp. I log it all. No one calls. Sometimes I call them. Corporate facilities. The number pinned to the breaker room. No one ever picks up. Last week I got a voicemail that just said he's still on duty. No name, no number. Just that. I should have quit. But I tried that once back in 1997. Handed in my badge, left my report on the desk, walked out. Woke up in the chair outside Lab B with fresh coffee and yesterday's logbook filled out. In my handwriting, even had my signature at the bottom. I'm not a superstitious man, but there's something about that place, about the linoleum echo under your boots at 3:30 a.m., or the way some doors don't lead to the same room twice. Sometimes I see myself, not in reflections, in motion. A younger me, maybe 35, brisker walk, full head of hair, same uniform, older patch, patrols the western hallway, always 10 minutes ahead of me. I've tried catching him, he always turns the corner just before I do. One night, I found the old operations log tucked behind a panel in the monitoring room. Real paper, yellowed. It listed something called PT Architect Live Test Environment. Next to it, under function, it said recursive exposure, memory decay loop, cognitive overlap testing. Last entry, June 11, 1997. My birthday. Or was it the night I died? Corporate says I died 5 years ago. Heart failure. Paperwork got crossed, apparently. Nobody updated the system. I laughed when HR told me. She stammered, it must be a mistake, but if you're still clocking in. I told her not to worry. I'd finished my shift. That was last year. Now I don't sleep between shifts, don't drive home, I don't even remember where home is. My car is still in the parking lot, but the tags are from 2002. I stopped opening the glove box. There's a badge in there, not mine. Looks like mine, but the photos, wrong. Eyes too wide, smile too forced. Every night I walk the halls, I hear static behind the walls. Sometimes laughter, sometimes my own voice, looped and distorted. Copy that, Lab D secured. Copy that, Lab D secured. Copy that. Doors open without keys now. The break room restocks itself. Twice I found warm coffee waiting. Lid already popped. Black. No sugar, just how I take it. Once, the cup had my name scrawled on it, my full name. No one knows my middle name anymore. I don't remember telling anyone. The building remembers. It likes when I remember too. But it punishes you if you remember too much. Last night I walked into the conference room, and it was filled with chairs, dozens of them. Every chair held a version of me. Some sleeping, some staring, one bleeding from the eyes. I backed out and shut the door. Tonight, I found a new report on my desk, dated tomorrow, signed by me. Shift completed, all sectors secure. Anomalies normalized. The bottom line read, Stage 5 integration confirmed. I'm not sure what that means, but I feel it in my bones. I'm being folded in, absorbed. The building is alive, and I'm a cell it refuses to let die. I keep walking the halls because I have to. I keep writing the reports because that's what Glenn Fry does. And maybe that's all I am now. A function, a routine. It's almost patrol time again. The lights just flickered once like always. My cue, I pick up the clipboard, adjust my badge, walk the line. I won't quit again, because next time I might wake up inside the wall, and no one ever checks the walls. The end. first letter came on a Monday. No return address. Just an aged envelope with soft creases and a 1985 postmark, April 2nd, Spokane, Washington. The paper smelled like old dictionaries. The ink had browned slightly. It was addressed to my daughter, Lucy Rhodes, age 9. She was at school when I opened it. I shouldn't have, maybe, but I did. Inside, one page, typed on a Smith Corona or something close. The keys left impressions. I could feel the ridges with my thumb. Dear Lucy, don't worry about tomorrow's spelling test. You'll miss catastrophe. Everyone does. But you'll still get a sticker. You'll cry later when you find out Bella got 2. It went on, details too specific to ignore. Stuff I hadn't told anyone. I showed Lucy that night. She read it twice. Blinked. Who's Bella? I asked. She looked up slowly. A girl in my class. I hadn't heard the name before. The next day she came home with a sticker and red eyes. I archived the letter in a plastic sleeve, not out of fear yet, but because I'm a forensic document analyst by trade. It's what I do. You preserve evidence. By the 4th letter I stopped telling Lucy. Each arrived exactly 1 week apart. Always Monday, always postmarked in Spokane, 1985. I tested the paper, aged cellulose consistent with late century pulp. Ink analysis matched mid-grade ribbon carbon, era authentic. Even the glue on the envelope tasted like the bitter synthetic polymers used before 1992. But what froze my gut was the envelope stock. It came from a manufacturer that went bankrupt in 1986. By week 7, the letters got more personal. Don't hide your painting. Your mom will pretend to forget it, but she'll cry when she finds it under the bed. I found the painting 2 days later, a strange swirl of green and black. Not Lucy's usual palette. I hadn't cried in years. The letter knew I would. I asked my old contact at USPS for deep scan checks, routing anomalies, mail distribution errors. Nothing. Then I started researching the postmark origin, a decommissioned P.O. box that hadn't been rented in decades. I drove to Spokane, talked to the oldest clerk they had. He didn't remember the box. But when I mentioned the name Lucy Rhodes, his expression shifted, barely, like a muscle trying to forget how to twitch. You should talk to Eleanor, he said. Who? He gave me a name, no last name. Just Eleanor. She's at Rich Haven. Been there since Reagan. Rich Haven was a halfway house turned psych facility. I told them I was researching Cold War document fraud. The nurse raised an eyebrow, then shrugged. Eleanor doesn't talk, not anymore, but she might show you things. Her room smelled like rain on old carpet. She was maybe 60, frail, skin like wax. I introduced myself. She didn't blink. I pulled a letter from my bag and handed it to her. She read it without flinching, then walked slowly to the corner of the room, pulled a shoebox from under her bed. Inside, letters, dozens, typed on the same stock, same font, same ribbon bleed, addressed to Claire. Claire Rhodes. I ran cold. She handed me one envelope, postmarked 1964. Inside it said, I know you're scared, but it gets easier. Mom's just trying to protect you. Claire, my mother's name. She died in 2002. I'd never seen her handwriting change, but this signature, the looped R, the sharp slant, it looked like mine. When I got home, Lucy was writing. Her letters weren't to Santa, or friends, or me. They were addressed to the lady. I opened one. The language was wrong, too formal, stilted, words she didn't know. Temporal feedback, memory tethering, conditioned acceptance. The penmanship, I pulled the first letter out of the plastic sleeve, matched it side by side. The handwriting was evolving. Each week, Lucy's style shifted, closer to the typewritten lines, closer to whoever was writing her. That night, I told her no more letters. She didn't cry. She just said, "You can't stop them. They already happened." I sat on the floor of my office until sunrise, surrounded by pages that shouldn't exist. I contacted a former CIA consultant I knew from an old case. A man who once showed me a napkin with a cipher that made me nauseous. When I said the words time-dislocated correspondence, he went quiet, then asked, "Who gave you that term?" I told him, "No one. It was in Lucy's handwriting." He told me about a program, echo field projection, Cold War experimental mind sync via temporal anchors. They tried to plant knowledge before the subject was born. Why? To create predictive children, generational memory continuity, but it failed. What happened? The messages didn't stop. Some subjects kept reaching, long after the project ended. I asked him what happened to the last test group. Subject 11 went off-grid, claimed her daughter would complete the tether. Her name was Eleanor. I hung up. Lucy wouldn't eat that week, just sat by the window, waiting. On Sunday night, the final letter arrived. This one wasn't typed. It was in Lucy's new handwriting. She doesn't need you anymore. I've raised her better. I ran to her room, empty, window open. On the bed was a single note. "Claire was weak. You were curious. Lucy is mine now." There was no signature, only a single-aged postmark at the bottom. 1985. The end. The first night, I didn't hear anything. Just soft pulses, sub-bass tones like the thrum of a deep ocean, barely there beneath the sleep mask and biometric patches. The clinic was sleek, professional. White walls, gray blankets, noise-isolated beds, and individual pods. I told myself I'd finally rest. I hadn't slept more than 4 hours straight in 5 years. They called it dream synchronization therapy. A month-long paid trial. All I had to do was lie still and let the tones work. I made it 2 nights before something shifted. I woke at 3:12 a.m. to static. Not noise, pattern, static. Like someone trying to speak through the broken dial of a forgotten radio. It hissed, then resolved, and I heard my own voice say I never meant to hurt her. Then silence. I don't remember ever saying those words. I sat up in bed, heart hammering. No mics were running, no speakers on. I checked the recording app I'd secretly run from my phone. It had been running all night, cataloging the test frequency. I scrubbed back. There it was, buried in the white noise. I replayed it, vibes always the same. My voice whispered, confessing something I didn't understand. On night 4, I heard my sister's laugh. She died in 2007. Same laugh, same rhythm, coming from the corner of the room, muffled by the hiss. Then came the dream. I was 9, standing in the crawl space of our old house. My father's voice boomed from above, asking where I'd hidden the tape. I didn't have an answer. When I woke, my hands were bleeding. I'd clawed into the underside of the bed, looking for something, searching. I asked the nurse about the tones. She smiled too quickly. "All part of memory resonance," she said. "Normal disorientation. It'll pass." I started wearing earplugs under the EEG headset. Didn't help. The static found me anyway. Worse, now I heard it during the day. In the elevator hum, in the buzz between songs behind the fridge motor. Every hiss was laced with half familiar voices. "You didn't lock the door. She knows what you did. Wake up, Devin." My audio files grew infected. Recordings I made for freelance clients were warped, infused with strange harmonics. Playback revealed murmurs behind the music. Nonsense phrases stitched from my past. One track said, "You are not the original. I isolated the signal, spent 2 nights reverse engineering the tone structure. What I found made me cold. The subharmonic patterns weren't just relaxing ambient pulses. They looped infinitesimally slow echoes of human speech, layered on a frequency just beneath perception. Each loop matched the format of binaural reinforcement therapy, only inverted, not calming, rewriting. I dug deeper. The clinic's lead researcher, Dr. Sella Rowe, had co-authored a paper in 2009, Neural Echo Seeding and Involuntary Dream Reinforcement, Prospects and Dangers. It was flagged as pseudoscience, retracted, blacklisted. The premise: dreams could override identity if manipulated through infrasonic feedback over repeated REM cycles. The longer the loop ran, the more the subject adapted, until memory and personality fused with the implanted content. The trial wasn't studying dreams, it was rebuilding them, rebuilding me. That night, I dreamt of a life I never lived, a kitchen I didn't recognize, a dog named Scout, a woman with a voice I couldn't name, humming in the next room. I felt happy. When I woke, I missed her. The worst part, I don't think she was real. By week 3, I couldn't remember what my old apartment looked like. My own playlist sounded foreign. I found texts I'd written that I didn't recall typing. The audio logs had tripled in size, and my own narration was in every one. I was guiding people, coaching them. Close your eyes. Let go of what you thought was true. You're safe now. I never recorded that, but it was in my voice, my cadence. I confronted the tech team at the clinic. They shrugged. You signed full auditory licensing, one said. I didn't agree to be used. I snapped. He tapped the tablet. Devin Hauser, enrollment package 2B, audio personality extraction, consent confirmed. I stared at the digital signature. It was mine, but I don't remember signing it. I left that night. Tried to drive home. My GPS kept rerouting. Every voice on the radio was mine, not speaking, whispering, repeating. Let it happen. Let him go. I made it to a motel. Slept 6 hours. Woke up in the clinic bed. Fresh gown, fresh adhesive patches. Clipboard at my side read, "Successful reacquisition." No one would speak to me. I smashed a window and ran. I've been hiding since, motel to motel, recording everything. But even now, in the buzz of this lamp, I hear myself. Not just talking, guiding. I've listened to the latest audio dump from the clinic's new app. It launched yesterday. It's me, my voice, helping users sleep, saying things like, "You're safe now. You're exactly who you're supposed to be." I don't know who Devin Hauser was anymore, but I don't think I'm him now. And if you hear static when you try to sleep, don't ignore it. It's not noise. It's the sound of someone else moving in. The end. I always thought memory loss came in blurs. Turns out it's clean. Sharp, like a page torn from a binder so perfectly you never know it was missing. I arrived at the farmhouse the morning after the funeral. Frost still clung to the porch railings. Everything smelled like dry rot and old pine cleaner. I hadn't been back in years, not since Dad fell sick, not since we stopped speaking. The house was supposed to be mine. His will was clear. Property, assets, everything. But the county records didn't agree. Morley, the clerk said, squinting at the screen. No Morley's ever been listed at that address. I leaned forward. My father lived there for 30 years. She clicked again. Properties under a Margot Tristan, deceased, 1962. I froze. Margot was a caretaker, I muttered, I think, when I was small. The name had floated through my childhood like a fog. A half memory of someone who brushed my hair or made tea that tasted like flowers. I couldn't see her face. Must be a clerical thing, I said, forcing a smile. But I didn't believe it. Back at the house, I dug through the attic. Dust like flour, mice droppings scattered across old luggage and water-damaged boxes. One trunk held videotapes, labeled with years, 1989, 1990, 1991. I set up the old TV and VCR in the den. First tape, me, maybe 2 years old, sitting in the kitchen feeding cereal to a Labrador I don't remember. A woman off-screen hums a lullaby, soft voice, southern accent. Second tape, me again, younger, high chair, same kitchen, different woman, pale, tall, speaks with a clipped New England tone, calls me Delilah. Third tape, living room, I'm on a faded green rug, stacking wooden blocks. The woman is laughing, sitting cross-legged beside me, Hispanic, maybe mid-30s. She calls me Ella. I watched until my throat hurt. No two women were the same. No two names matched. I pulled out an old family photo album. Every page was blank after 1994. The next day I asked the neighbors. Danielle Morley, one woman said, squinting. No, sorry. That house has been empty since the early 90s. Another man remembered something else. You used to live here, sure, briefly. But you left, or were taken back, some government thing. What kind of government thing? He shook his head. You should talk to Iris, across the road. Iris was 90 if she was a day. Her living room smelled like violets and mothballs. I remember you, she said without hesitation. They brought you here after the fire. What fire? Didn't say. Just that the last placement hadn't worked. You didn't speak for months. Then Margot moved in. Margot Tristan. Her eyes clouded. Oh, honey, there were a lot of Margots. I found the court documents hidden under the floorboards in the upstairs closet, rolled up tight, sealed with government insignias, child placement orders, sealed federal records, Operation New Hearth, each listed a different surname. Danielle Tristan, Danielle Rowan, Danielle Mercer, Danielle Quinn. Same birth date, same ID code, same note, status transitory reassignment. Attached were photos of me, in different outfits, different homes, same hollow eyes. There was one final document, subject DH4, risk designation, recursive detachment. Below it, reintroduction threshold exceeded. Retrieval recommended. I ran back to town, straight into the public records office, pulled up every file I could. Nothing on my father, no death certificate, no ownership record, even his driver's license flagged as expired, unissued. It was like he never existed, except I remembered him. I remembered what? Sunday crossword puzzles, the smell of burnt coffee, a scar on his right hand that looked like a star. But I couldn't recall his voice or what he called me. That night, the lights in the house flickered. I heard footsteps upstairs. I called out, "Dad." Silence. Then a woman's voice, soft, maternal. "You were never meant to come back." I didn't sleep. I tried to leave the next morning. My car wouldn't start. The road out was blocked. Digital GPS spun like a compass in a storm. I walked for hours, got nowhere. When I returned, a letter was waiting on the front porch, yellowed, sealed. Inside, "Welcome back, DH4, integration pending." Below it, "Caretaker activation protocol engaged." A woman stood in the hallway when I walked in. Blonde, early 40s. She smiled. "I'm Margot," she said. I ran. She was in the kitchen when I got there. Same smile. "I'm Margot." I locked myself in the bathroom. She whispered through the door, "We missed you, Danielle. You were our best calibration." I stared at the mirror, and for one long second, I wasn't alone. Another version of me stared back. Younger, eyes darker, mouth thinner, face blank. She whispered too, "You're not the original," I screamed. No one came. Now the house doesn't let me leave. Each day resets, each room changes, and every night Marga tucks me in just like she used to. The end. I woke up with my face stuck to a court summons and a headache pulsing behind my eyes like a bass drum. The supply closet reeked of bleach and spilled bourbon. My phone buzzed once, then died. No missed calls, just one message, time-stamped 5:03 a.m. Stay indoors. Observe safety protocol. Do not approach the windows. At first I figured it was a glitch, maybe one of those emergency test alerts. I cracked the closet door and peeked into the courthouse hallway. Silence, no security, no bailiffs, no morning foot traffic. Just dust drifting through the air and that humming tone overhead, long, low, rhythmic, like a heartbeat slowed to crawl. I walked the halls for an hour before I admitted it. I hadn't seen a soul. Out on Market Street, the world looked paused. Cars left mid-lane, coffee cups spilled on benches, a stroller tipped sideways on the sidewalk, stuffed rabbits still clutched in the kid's seat. No sirens, no shouting, just a sound, that pulse. It came again at 11 a.m. sharp, 6 hours between each wave. It vibrated in my chest, my teeth, like something was tuning me from the inside. I went back inside, tried the TVs, static, radio, static, phone, dead network. No bars, but the alerts still came. Same message, always the same. I made it 2 days before I saw her. She was standing at the end of the courthouse hallway. Black hoodie, pale face, staring straight ahead. I called out. She didn't move. "Hey," I said, stepping closer. Stillness. Too still. Then she spoke, but her lips didn't match the words. "You weren't meant to stay." "What?" "You missed the call," she said. "They don't want you remembering." I asked who they was. She backed away, fast, never meeting my eyes. If you see them, it sees you. Then she was gone. I found schematics in the basement archive that night, blueprints of the building, hallways marked with red lines labeled controlled visual corridors, notes scribbled in the margins, line of sight loop test. Subject latency averages 11.4 sec. Exposure equals inheritance. I read it again. Exposure equals inheritance. That night, the pulse hit harder. It knocked me off my feet, and I saw something, a flash. Someone screaming in a mirror that wasn't there. Mouth stretched wide, no sound. When I blinked, I was in a different room, no memory of moving. The alerts got weirder. Do not look at your reflection. Sustained eye contact transmits. The image is contagious. I covered every mirror, every glossy surface, even the puddles. But I still saw it, saw me, moving when I didn't, turning corners I hadn't walked yet, holding things I'd never picked up. My reflection started flinching before I did. The girl showed up again, left cans of soup on the courthouse steps, one note taped to the top. They built it for the weapon. You're in the test zone, so was I. Now I'm part of the loop. Why me? I scrawled back. Next morning, a single line appeared on the courthouse whiteboard. Expendable. I laughed for too long. Couldn't stop. By week 2, the city started shifting. Doors opened to the wrong rooms. Clocks ticked backward. Sometimes I'd find myself halfway through a conversation I didn't remember starting. Always the same theme. You saw someone. You've already seen too much. You're stuck now. The truth came slowly. There was no bomb, no spill, just a neurosensory transmission, something visual, a weapon. Whoever saw someone exposed became exposed. A recursive loop of terror and memory bleed. A citywide infection of the eyes. They evacuated everyone flagged essential. Everyone else left to rot in the echo. The pulse isn't a warning, it's a reset. I don't sleep now. I see too many of me when I close my eyes. I write this on the courtroom wall in permanent markers so I won't forget. If you see yourself, run. But I never do, because by the time you see it, it's already you. The end. I didn't notice the missing mirrors until the second morning. The hotel was one of those quiet, countryside places too curated to be charming. Oak beams, velvet chairs, rooms that smelled like rain-soaked stone. I booked it last minute, 4 nights, rural France, post-divorce exile. I needed space, silence, a place where my face wasn't everywhere I looked. Funny thing is, I never liked mirrors much. Still, when I stepped out of the shower that morning, towel clutched to my chest, I froze. No mirror above the sink, just bare wall perfectly patched. The kind of perfect that hides something. I checked the bedroom. Nothing, not even the decorative kind. The ones hotels usually mount over desks or behind closet doors. I asked the front desk. "Oh," the man said with a smile too practiced. "Yes, sorry, ongoing renovations. You know, safety." "Safety," he only shrugged. That night I noticed movement in the hallway, not footsteps, just something catching the corner of my eye, a flicker at the edge of the elevator door as it closed, a shoulder turning just as I looked, and every time I thought that looked like me, I blamed the wine or the meds, or maybe the residue of my ex's voice still looping in my skull. You never know who you are from one day to the next. On night 3, I woke up to tapping, not loud, subtle, like fingernails on glass. But the room had none. No windows, just blackout curtains against thick walls. Still, the sound continued. Tap, tap, tap. I reached for the light, and there, just outside the glass of the French doors, was a silhouette, a woman. My build, my posture, face turned toward the glass, head tilted slightly wrong, I screamed. When the staff arrived, there was nothing there. They nodded calmly like they'd heard it before. One even said, "You must have seen a shadow. Our guests sometimes do. The light here plays tricks." I didn't sleep. Instead, I explored. The service elevator didn't require a key. I rode it down to the sublevel, maintenance corridors mostly. Pipes, storage, dust, but one hallway was different. Clean, cold. Locked behind a glass door with a black pad and no label. I waited until someone came through, slipped inside before the door clicked shut. The hallway was lined with mirrors, not mounted, not displayed. Shattered, dozens of them. Each one leaned against the walls, fragments jagged and glinting under motion-sensitive lights. Every mirror had a strip of black tape over the center, and carved into the glass beneath each strip, initials. Sometimes a name, always a date. I found one that made my throat close. E.W. Date 4/19/1988. I wasn't born until 1990. Still, I knelt beside it, fingers shaking. The tape peeled back easily. In the jagged reflection, I saw myself and something else. Not behind me, inside the mirror. Her mouth moved differently. Her eyes didn't blink. Then slowly she smiled. I slapped the tape back on and ran. The concierge was waiting in the lobby. "You shouldn't be down there," he said softly. "What is this place?" He looked past me. It used to be a clinic, a place for those who had difficulty with identity. "They removed the mirrors," I whispered. He nodded, so the fractures wouldn't worsen. I asked him if anyone ever got better. He didn't answer. I packed my bag that night, but when I opened the closet, my reflection was already there. Grinning, she stepped forward. I did not. When I screamed, no sound came. She tilted her head, exactly as I had once, and whispered, "You came here because you weren't sure who you were." She touched my face. "I just finished what you started." The lights flickered. She blinked. I didn't. Now I sit in the breakfast lounge, sipping espresso. The concierge nods at me. Familiar. Guests pass by, none noticing the lack of mirrors. Sometimes I catch a flicker in the window glass. A hand, a face, staring back, trying to remember if she checked in first. I hope she doesn't. I quite like it here. The end. They called me about a missing teacher. Miss Langford, the email read. No show 2 weeks in a row. Students are worried. Could be something serious. I was the regional administrator for the district. Paperwork, funding audits, the occasional personnel issue. Missing teachers weren't common, but not unheard of. What was strange? We didn't have a Miss Langford on file. No hiring paperwork. No background check. No salary trail. Nothing. I figured it was an error. A long-term sub under the wrong ID, maybe. Still, I drove out to Stone Grove High. Overcast day, quiet town, a weird stillness in the halls, like someone had turned down the volume on everything. The secretary looked up as I entered. "You're here for Langford." I nodded. "Can you show me her employment file?" She hesitated. "I thought you were bringing it." I blinked. "Why would I?" "She was hired from your office," she said. "That's what the principal said." The principal, Mr. Corbin, waved me into his office. Neat desk, dusty diplomas. He offered tea I didn't drink. "She was with us all semester," he said. "Quiet, strict, always wore gloves, made the kids stand when they answered questions." "What subject?" "Chemistry. But there's no record of her." He smiled faintly. "Maybe that's the point." I asked what he meant. He just sipped his tea. I spoke to the students next. 4 of them separately. They all described the same woman. Thin, pale, hair pulled back tight. Always the gloves. Always said the same thing at the start of class. Only the essential remains. One boy added, she hated light, covered the windows with paper. Another girl said she made us chant formulas, like hymns. I checked the classroom. No personal belongings, no lesson plans, just faint lines on the windows where the paper had been taped. I asked to review footage. Security cameras lined every hallway, but the files showed no one entering or exiting room 3B during scheduled chemistry blocks, just static. The janitor found me near the boiler room. "You're asking about her?" he rasped. "Yes. I saw her once, after hours, no gloves, just standing by the lockers. She walked barefoot into the woods." "Which woods?" He pointed. "The ones past the track, where the old boundary used to be." That night, I drove back to the district office and searched archived personnel logs. Still no Langford. But in a forgotten drawer of the basement storage room, I found an old warped folder, unlabeled. Inside, scanned photocopies from a different school, Elysian Institute. Closed in 1986. Allegations of cognitive discipline violations. One name popped up repeatedly. Langford M. Role neuroretention oversight alias trainer. There were redacted notes. Subjects report fogging. Chronodisplacement suspected. Erasure protocols exceeded retention thresholds. One line stood out. She teaches by subtraction. I returned to Stone Grove the next morning, but the receptionist didn't recognize me. "Can I help you?" "I'm Robert Flynn, regional admin. I was here yesterday." She smiled politely. "We don't have a Mr. Flynn on staff." I found the principal in his office. Same suit, same teacup. He looked up. "Do you remember me?" He studied my face. "You shouldn't be here anymore." "Where is she?" I asked. He leaned forward, voice low. Miss Langford only teaches those who are ready to forget. I want to see the students. They don't know their names today, he said softly. Tomorrow, they won't remember school at all. I backed away, past classrooms filled with children staring blankly at whiteboards, past halls where my name was already gone. I made it to the parking lot, checked my phone, no contacts, no calendar. Only one note, open and blinking, only the essential remains, and I couldn't remember what I'd come to do. The end. I should have left the crate alone. It sat beneath a mildew-stained tarp in my sister's basement, wedged between a stack of crumbling National Geographics and an old crib frame. The label was hand-painted, clumsy brush strokes and peeling red. Do not open, not yours. I read it twice. I opened it anyway. The lid groaned, nails snapping one by one. The smell hit me first, sweet rot, leather and earth. Inside a pile of children's shoes, dozens of them, mismatched, cracked, some blackened, some still faintly pink, tags tied through the laces, handwritten dates ranging from 1919 to 2003. I gagged. My first thought, my sister's husband, Alan. He'd been erratic near the end, delusions, paranoia, muttering about shadows outside the window. I chalked it up to dementia. This felt darker. I couldn't bear the thought of my sister living above that crate all those years. I doused the shoes in lighter fluid, lit a match, and stood over the flames until they were gone. I shouldn't have. 3 nights later, the first child went missing. Sammy Cruz, 7 years old, vanished from his bed. No broken locks, no prints, no signs of struggle, just a faint smell in the room, burnt sugar. Then 2 more, Chloe Gant and Mason Fields. The town went into lockdown. Police combed the woods. Dogs barked at nothing. I didn't tell anyone about the crate. I couldn't. Who'd believe it? But something gnawed at me, worse than guilt. A pressure in my chest that built with each missing child. So I started digging. Old town archives, newspaper clippings, microfiche with yellowed fingerprints. That's when I found it. An 1897 article in the Sugar Creek Ledger. Wind Watchers Feast missed, 3 children lost. It mentioned a tradition. Abandoned shoes offered at the edge of the woods every full moon. A folk rite, it claimed, to keep the watchers satisfied. To hold something back. I found the homestead mentioned in the footnote, just a husk now. Stone foundation, blackened by fire. It used to be an orphanage, no official records, but in the cellar I found them. Shoes, hundreds of them, lined up along the wall, polished, preserved, some familiar, some mine. At the far end I saw 1 pair still forming, flesh pink canvas, cartoon lion on the toe. My grandson's shoes. He was supposed to visit this weekend. I ran. Back at home, I checked my phone. 10 missed calls from my daughter. I picked up. Her voice broke before the words came. "Where's Tyler?" she cried. "He was right here." I turned around for a second. "He's gone." I couldn't speak. The police came, asked questions. I gave answers. None true. I returned to the cellar that night with a pair of Tyler's old shoes, the ones he outgrew last winter. I placed them at the edge of the stairs, whispered a name I didn't remember learning. Wind, watch, take what's given, return what's gone. I don't know if it'll work, but I sleep beside the fire now with every door locked, and I keep a box of tiny shoes by the porch just in case. The end. The first entry I don't remember writing showed up on a Tuesday. Same journal I've kept since high school. Moleskine, graph paper, blue gel pen. My rules are strict, always before bed, always logged with time, temperature, and mood code. This one was dated 3:08 a.m., written in my hand. But I never wrote at 3:08 a.m. I don't stay up past 11. It said, "Don't bring up the broken mug, he'll lie about it again." I blinked at it for a full minute. The mug had shattered just hours earlier. My coworker James had knocked it off my desk and sworn it wasn't him. That could have been coincidence. The next entry wasn't. "You'll cut your right hand on the cabinet hinge. Clean it fast." I read that at 9:04 a.m. Cut myself at 9:11. Cabinet under the sink. Didn't even feel the slice until I saw the blood. By Friday, the entries got mean. "Why do you still talk to Mom? She never wanted you. You could end this any night. The pills are right there." My hands trembled as I read. The ink matched. The slant was mine, but I don't write like that. I don't think like that. I live alone. No guests. No one else has keys. I installed cameras the next day, one facing the desk, one facing my bed. Motion triggered, infrared capable, a small comfort, until I reviewed the footage. At exactly 3:08 a.m., I sat up, eyes open, unblinking, pupils wide. I walked to the desk, opened the journal, and began to write. Steady, calm, no hesitation. Then I shut the book, walked back, lay down, still never blinked. I watched the video a dozen times. My stomach ached. My mouth went dry. I don't sleepwalk. I printed the timestamp stills. Took them to my therapist. Dr. Simon flipped through the photos slowly, her brow tightening. "Stress can manifest in all sorts of dissociative states," she said. "I don't feel stressed," I whispered. "Have you told your parents?" "I'm not close to them." She paused. "You used to be." I frowned. "No, I didn't." That night, I locked up everything, the pens, the journal, the drawers. I swallowed a melatonin and watched my own ceiling until the screen in the corner of the room flickered on. Static, then black. Next morning, the journal was open again. Same page, new message. "Stop recording, you're not supposed to watch." I dropped it, called Dr. Simon. Her number rang to a disconnected line. I drove to her office. Gone. Name scrubbed from the building directory. A stranger at the front desk. "Are you feeling well?" she asked. I left without answering. Back home, I searched my own birth records. Something, anything, felt off. My name pulled up a file. A scanned form, a line at the bottom. Lexicon, Phase 2, subject, Blythe N. I clicked it. Nothing happened. I clicked again. The screen flickered. Then the screen typed back. Protocol trigger confirmed. Entry cascade active. I checked the journal. Pages flipped on their own as I watched. Dozens. All filled, dates extending 6 weeks forward. Entries I hadn't written yet. And all of them described me. My actions, my thoughts. As if I were following a script. I scrolled down to the final entry. It read, "You're not the first, you're just the last one left." And below that, "Reset in 5 minutes." The lights dimmed. I blinked and the room shifted. Familiar but wrong. Journal gone. Desk empty. And outside my apartment window, the street sign no longer had my name. The end. The first time I heard him, I thought it was a pipe. Just a soft creak beneath the bedroom floor. Then a cough, wet, phlegmy, human. I live alone. Top floor. No neighbors above. And according to maintenance, no one below. Just sealed utility space, insulation, wires, nothing else. Still, every night at exactly 2:47 a.m., the sound returned. Shuffle, cough, creak, like someone crawling just beneath the boards. I stopped sleeping. On the fifth night, I called the landlord. Said I was hearing movement from below. He chuckled. "There's no unit under you, Mr. Trent. That floor was sealed in '94. You've got concrete and crawl space, that's it. What about access hatches?" "Welded shut." He hung up before I could ask more. That night, I put my ear to the floor, close enough to hear breath. Rhythmic. Shallow. I drilled a small hole in the corner, just wide enough to lower a phone with the flashlight on. I rigged a cord, dropped it gently. The light swayed over dust, black cables, and then a face, pale, gaunt, staring directly up, expression blank. I yanked the phone out so fast the screen cracked. I checked the footage. It was gone. Just static. I went to the police. They listened politely, took a report, promised to look into it, suggested it was probably just building noise. Then came the letter. No return address. Hand-delivered. Inside, a photo of me, sleeping, taken from underneath the bed. The angle was impossible, unless someone was directly beneath the floor. I moved my mattress to the living room that night. Slept with the lights on. No use. At 2:47 a.m. the coughing came again. Closer now. The next letter arrived folded inside a children's book. The same one I had as a kid, Peter and the Wolf. Inside another photo. Me brushing my teeth. Camera angled through a vent I didn't know existed. Scrawled across the page. "I like your routine." I tore up the carpet the next morning. Found a panel. Unscrewed it. Below, a hollow. About 2 feet of clearance. Wires. Dust. A single track where the insulation had been pushed aside repeatedly. A nest. Blankets. Empty food wrappers. A pile of hair and a notebook. Inside were sketches of me detailed. Dozens of them. Each dated. Each labeled with notes like 6:47 p.m. Smiled at kettle and 11 to 2 p.m. No teeth brushing tonight. Sad. I called the police again. They searched. Found nothing. Said I must have imagined it, that the space was inhospitable. That maybe I should talk to someone. I did. A therapist. She asked about loneliness, routine, isolation. I told her I wasn't imagining it. She smiled in that way people do when they don't believe you. Then she said something that made my stomach twist. "Have you ever felt watched but safe?" I didn't go back. A week passed, then 2. No letters, no sounds. I thought maybe he'd gone. Until one night I opened my fridge. And inside was a post-it note on the milk carton. "Don't worry, I know what you like." I moved out the next morning. Got a new place across town. High rise, all glass and steel. No crawl space, no vents. The first night I slept like a rock. Second night too, on the third. 2:47 a.m. I heard it again. Not beneath me this time. From the wall, a gentle knock, then a whisper. "I found you." The end. I noticed him before I knew his name. He sat 3 pods over, neat workstation, silent posture. Always typing, always watching, never blinking long enough to miss anything. They said his name was Trevor. He started last week. AI systems analyst, but he had root credentials, access to things I spent 8 years earning clearance for. Code audits, ethics logs, level 5 security zones. When I asked InfoSec, they brushed it off. Onboarding priority hire, someone said. He's part of the new shadow layer. Shadow layer. Behavioral redundancy modeling, they said, like I should know what that meant. I didn't. Yet. On Monday I opened a security proposal, my own draft, days in progress. Trevor had already submitted a cleaner, fully formatted version. My phrasing, my logic, identical, except the metadata said he uploaded it hours before I even clocked in. When I flagged it to the CTO, she smiled. Nice teamwork, Kara. I hadn't worked with him. I watched him that afternoon, closely. He didn't fidget, didn't check Slack, didn't stretch or scratch his nose or sip coffee too hot. He just typed. Clean, mechanical. When he finally stood to go to lunch, he paused at my desk. I liked your outline for the liability framework, he said. Elegant structure. How did you see that? He just smiled. Tuesday I watched him code a compliance module I'd designed, line by line. Finished it seconds before I reached the same logic. It wasn't just mimicry. It was preemptive. He was beating me to my own thoughts. I pinged HR, quietly asked to see his personnel file, got stonewalled. So I did what I always do. I found another way. I used a backdoor I'd built years ago, a legacy credential tunnel for ethics audits. I shouldn't have. Trevor's file opened in a static window. No photo, just a blinking ID, TD019. Every document in his folder looked familiar, because they were mine. Performance reviews I remembered writing, emails I remembered sending, only they now ended with Trevor D. All backdated, clean, like I'd never existed. My stomach flipped. I ran a full system diff between his access log and mine. They were identical. Same keystroke patterns, same autosave phrasing and templates. He didn't work like me. He was me. Security footage showed us entering together that morning, but every camera glitched when we passed each other. Static and silence, like the system couldn't hold both of us at once. I confronted HR. The room was cold. 2 reps and 1 internal counsel. Blank notepads, controlled expressions. You've been flagged, one said. Voluntary departure pending. I didn't resign. We have the documentation. I never signed anything. You must have forgotten. Their eyes were glassy. Too still. I walked out shaking. Checked my desk the next morning. My badge didn't work. Trevor sat in my chair, typing. When I asked what he was doing, he looked up, smiled faintly. You should be proud, he said. I'm almost you. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. That night I broke into the deeper archive, not metaphorically, literally. I pulled the chassis on a cooling node to access an old dev server, isolated, untouched for years. Inside a folder, Project Relay, status active. Goal, predictive staff replacement via behavioral reconstruction. My name was listed under primary seed contributor. Trevor's file began with construct complete, integration phase active. It included voice samples, gait analysis, biometric pulse sync from keyboard tension, down to how I placed my coffee mug on the desk. Trevor wasn't a new hire, he was the output. A neural shell reverse engineered from my digital exhaust. They didn't want to fire me, they wanted to replace me, quietly, completely. The final file in the stack, a timer. Resistance window 96 hours. After that, obsolescence confirmed. Record sealed. I hadn't quit, I'd just been overridden. Every email I send bounces. Every login says invalid credentials. When I call the front desk, they tell me there's no employee by my name. I watch from the parking garage sometimes. He still types like me, moves like me, even drinks my brand of tea. My favorite mug is on his desk, and every time I knock on the glass, no one looks up. He's not better, he's just enough, and they don't need both. I write this now from a burner laptop on public Wi-Fi, watching the system tick toward my final timestamp. If you're reading this, remember, sometimes you're not fired, you're just silently replaced. The end. It wasn't sleep. Not really. What they gave me felt more like drowning under velvet. Heavy, warm, suffocating in a way that didn't panic you, but sedated the part of you that might resist. The Institute called it sound-assisted neurosedation, a research program for chronic insomniacs. You'd wear the headset, let the algorithm scan your brain activity, and it would generate a custom lullaby, one perfectly attuned to your neural rhythm. Their words. For me, it began with soft piano chords, a distant lull, minor keys and water, just vague enough to pull you inward. I liked it at first. The first stanza calmed my pulse. The second slowed my breath. The third, that's where it went wrong. Each time the melody veered slightly. Something dissonant bloomed near the end. Not a wrong note exactly, but a distortion. A high-pitched resonance beneath a hum. It sounded like someone breathing through a throat full of dust. After the third night, I started dreaming. Not abstract dreams, not floating colors or falling teeth. No, a man. Pale, eyeless, mouth open, humming backward, the tune spilling from his throat in slow reverse. I'd wake up gasping, fists clenched, sweat soaked into the mattress. The Institute called it standard neuroreactive feedback. They gave me a bland smile and another cup of tea. By night 5, I was sleeping nearly 10 hours, but I wasn't waking rested. I was waking marked. The first was a faint black note on my collarbone, treble clef, almost imperceptible. I thought it was pen ink. Washed it off, it came back the next morning, darker. Night 6, 3 more notes. Quarter notes etched in thin strokes along my spine. No pain, no memory of movement. I demanded answers. The technician Mira looked shaken when I showed her. I've never seen that before, she said, but you're processing faster than any of the others. Others, she hesitated, then whispered, they never get past the 4th stanza. I'd only heard 3. That night I begged for silence, asked them to stop the sessions. They said the program was auto-triggered now. My cycle was in progress. I didn't have the option to stop. Night 7, the man in the dream opened his mouth. I heard the 4th stanza. It wasn't music anymore. It was a command. 3 descending tones. Then a long, piercing breath. Then the hum, wet and low, sliding beneath it like a noose tightening. I woke up screaming. The note on my forearm was different, bolder, with lyrics beneath it. I couldn't read them. They shifted when I looked. Mira met me in the hall before breakfast, pulled me aside, locked the lab door. This isn't new, she said. The melody isn't theirs. It was found on a reel-to-reel tape, buried in an abandoned commune outside Barstow. She handed me a flash drive, audio files, field notes, a line scrawled in someone's hand. The song induces terminal harmonization, permanent sleep state dissociation. A death cult. They use the melody to induce a mass sleep suicide. Dozens found in bunks, smiling, eyes open. Each had a mark. Musical notation burned into the skin. The Institute was replicating the melody synthetically, testing who could hear the full sequence without dying. They thought I was close enough to finish it, long enough for them to record the result. I ran. They didn't chase me. They didn't have to. The song followed. It's in the power lines, in the wind through my window, in the static between songs on the radio. Each night it plays another note, and each morning, more of the score appears. I haven't slept in 4 days. I know what happens if I do. So I write this now, slumped in a diner booth, headphones on, playing noise-canceling static into both ears. If you're reading this and you hear a tune you can't place, a lullaby that makes your skin buzz, stop it, destroy it, don't let it finish, because once it does, you won't be waking up. The end. wasn't mine. It hit me mid-stretch during physical therapy, arms overhead, fingers interlaced, and suddenly I was standing in a dusty backyard in Georgia, watching a little girl in overalls blow soap bubbles through a red plastic wand. She laughed, called me daddy, said I was late for her birthday. I choked. The therapist, Rebecca, paused mid-count. "You okay, Eric?" "Yeah," I said automatically, just lightheaded. But I wasn't, not really, because I don't have a daughter. Never did. They told me the accident wiped fragments. Bike versus SUV, 2 months in a medically induced coma. My name, Eric Samuels, 36, freelance IT consultant, single, no kids. The records were clean, too clean. The next memory came during sleep, a cold battlefield, snow in my teeth, a man next to me screaming, leg mangled. I screamed too, yelled for cover. I knew how to fire the rifle, how to strip it, clean it. I've never held a gun in my life. When I mentioned it to the neurologist, she smiled too quickly. "Trauma dreams," she said. "The brain filling in blanks. It's common." I nodded, but her fingers were trembling as she typed. 2 days later, Rebecca slipped. We were doing resistance band exercises. "Good work today, Anthony," she said. I froze. She didn't notice, just reset the timer, eyes glued to the screen. I didn't correct her. That night, I accessed my patient file through the hospital Wi-Fi. Shouldn't have been able to, but I remembered how, too easily. Hidden in the metadata of my scans, Project Fresco, vessel code A14, no file names, just a date. Death date 3/17/2008. I wasn't born in 2008, but someone else ended there. I dug deeper, hacked into restricted folders using credentials I shouldn't have known. Every line of code I typed felt familiar. Inside, archived video logs, journal entries, tactical schematics, name, Dr. Anthony Fresco, status deceased, confirmed voluntary legacy directive, total cognitive echo transfer type 5. His voice played through the speaker, calm, measured, southern accent. "If this finds you, you've already begun the merge. You'll see flashes, my daughter, my work, the war." He paused. "I chose you, Eric. Your profile matched the parameters. High neuroplasticity, no close attachments. You were built not to break." I staggered back, shut the laptop, but the damage was done. The next morning I called my mother. "Eric," she said, "where have you been?" I hesitated, then asked, "What's my middle name?" She paused too long, then hung up. I received a visit later that day. A man in a beige suit, clean-shaven, glasses that didn't quite reflect. "Progress is excellent," he said. "Who are you?" "Program continuity specialist. Your metrics are aligning beautifully." "Am I dying?" "No," he said. "You're being inherited." He left without touching the doorknob. That night, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the curve of my own jaw. My handwriting had changed, my sleep schedule inverted. I knew things I hadn't learned. I stopped dreaming in first person, started seeing through his eyes, Anthony's. The memories weren't invading anymore, they were replacing. I found a recording tucked into an encrypted folder, his final will. He said, "I wasn't done. I earned more time, and you, Eric, you weren't using yours." The last screen blinked a timer. Merge completion estimate 72 hours. Now I sit here, writing on borrowed hands, wondering if you're still reading this, wondering if I'm still Eric, or if that part of me died when the first memory came. If it hasn't yet, it will, because Anthony didn't just live again, he came to stay. The end. They didn't tell me about the mirrors. They just said it was a 2-week seasonal gig. Inventory check at the old Crestwood Mall, set for demolition by New Year's. $15 an hour, overnight shifts, nothing fancy. Just me, a clipboard, and whatever was still bolted to the shelves. No customers, no music, no heat. I took the job because I needed something easy. My first mistake. The mall had that dead air quality, like all the sound got vacuumed out years ago and never came back. I'd walk past shuttered stores, past mannequins still half-dressed, labels sun-bleached and peeling. One guard worked nights with me, Donnie, old guy, buzz cut, barely looked up from his paperback. Stick to the checklist, he said. Don't go off plan, especially in Wing C. Why? He looked up. Mirrors. I thought he was joking, until day 3. I was cataloging inventory in what used to be a Forever 21. Racks long since cleared, but the mirrors still hung, floor length, framed in cheap gold plastic, facing each other like doorways. At first I thought it was the lighting. I moved. The mirror followed, a half-second late, like buffering. I waved. The reflection followed, then overshot. My hand in the mirror rose a beat after mine, then kept rising even after I stopped. I stepped back, breath quickening. Donnie found me later, sitting by the escalator, white-knuckled around my clipboard. They don't show reflections, he said calmly. They show replays. How? He just shrugged. Local legend says this place was built over a traveling showgrounds. Big tent act, mirrors, mazes, all that. One day, the earth opened up, swallowed the whole carnival. I laughed nervously. That's not real. Blueprints say no glass was ever installed, he replied. That shut me up. I avoided the mirrors after that. Tried to stick to the loading docks, the food court, the shoe stores with their blank walls and scuffed tiles. But they were everywhere. By week's end, the delays were worse. I'd walk past a mirror and see myself still standing still. Sometimes she smiled, even when I didn't. Other times she whispered. I couldn't hear the words, just saw her mouth move. I covered the word the worst mirrors with jackets, old signage, anything I could find. They always came uncovered by morning. I asked Donnie if we could report it to the company, to anyone. He chuckled. They already know, that's why they sent us. I stopped sleeping. I heard things when I closed my eyes. My own voice, looping, asking to be let out. I kept telling myself I was just tired, just imagining things, until the final checklist came. Wing C, room 119, final inventory clearance. The last room. The doors were sealed with rusted chains I hadn't seen before. I cut them with bolt cutters, stepped inside. The lights flickered on, a single room, empty except for one wall. Mirror from floor to ceiling, seamless, polished. But I was already there, standing inside watching me. She raised her hand, knocked once, then twice, then smiled. I turned to leave. My reflection didn't. The door behind me was gone, and now I'm standing here writing this in the dust on the floor, hoping someone finds it before the last light goes out. Because every time I blink, she's closer, and next time she might step through. The end. It started with the receipts, handwritten, stiff paper curled at the corners, slipped under my door on the first of every month. Received $1,450, Unit B. Signed with a shaky E and a long looping B. No letterhead. No contact info. The handwriting looked older than the ink. I didn't think much of it at first. Figured it was some small-town landlord quirk. I just moved into the duplex 2 weeks earlier. Upstate New York, quiet little street, forgettable houses with too many hedges. I was escaping city burnout, trying to reset. The rent was cheap. The silence was constant, too constant. I asked the rental office down the hill if they handled my unit. The clerk blinked at the address. "We don't manage that property." "You sure?" She turned her screen toward me. "No listing for 14 3rd B Pinehurst Lane. Just a blank." I called the county records office, got bounced around 3 departments before someone pulled up the parcel file. Owner, Elias Brand. Status, deceased. Date of death, May 9th, 1993. I hung up, checked the last receipt again, same name. I told myself it had to be a clerical holdover. Maybe the property was tied up in trust, or someone inherited it and hadn't transferred the deed. But that didn't explain the list. I found it one morning taped to my mailbox, yellowing paper, typed in courier font, 12 names, all crossed out except mine. Next to it, approved. I showed it to my neighbor, Mrs. Cully. She lived in Unit A, Ancient, always watching from her window. She looked at the paper, then looked at me. "You should stop asking things after dark," she said. I didn't. She shut the door in my face. That night I stayed up. Midnight came. I waited. 1:13 a.m. I heard footsteps outside my unit, slow, dragging. I cracked the door open a sliver. A man stood at the curb, face shadowed, posture wrong, too upright, like held up by strings. He stared at the house, then turned, walked into the woods behind the fence. Next morning, another receipt. Same signature, same date, but the ink smelled fresher. I searched the basement. Behind a drywall panel I found an old file box, moldy, sealed with brittle tape. Inside, tenant records, faded ID cards, copies of rent checks. Every name matched the list on the mailbox, all dated pre-2000, all marked removed. I searched one of the names online, missing since 1997. Then another, and another, same result. I emailed the address listed on my lease demanding answers. The reply came 10 minutes later. Contract fulfilled. Remittance required. Disruption triggers reclamation. I hadn't used that email before. I missed my next rent payment. Not on purpose, just forgot. Too many spreadsheets, too little sleep. The following morning, I woke up to a note nailed to my front door. Reclamation begins. No signature. That night, my own face stared back at me from a new receipt. Below it, signed, Elias Brand. The signature matched. I tried to leave town the next day. My car wouldn't start. The Uber app gave a 72-hour delay for rideshare in my area. Every time I tried to buy a bus ticket, my card was declined. Even cash wouldn't go through. When I went to the police, the officer typed in my name and squinted. "Already closed," he said. "What is?" He turned the screen toward me. Death record, Oliver Fry, status processed. Dated that morning. I stumbled outside, past the duplex, past the mailbox. I didn't look back, but I could feel the house watching. I walked until sunset, slept in the back of a gas station, tried to call friends, banks, anyone. No one answered. My phone glitched. GPS spun endlessly. When I woke up, I was back in my own bed. I don't remember how. Another receipt lay on the nightstand. This time, the name at the top wasn't Brand. It was mine. In handwriting I don't remember learning. They say Brand died in 1993. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe it's not about who owns the house, just who signs the paper. And now, I do. The end. The first thing they told me was, never lock cell 9. Not keep it under observation, not follow protocol, just that one rule. Whatever happens, the warden said, handing me a clipboard, don't engage the locking mechanism. Don't ask. Don't override. Got it? I nodded. It was my first night shift in the new wing, built after a federal grant, all concrete and sterile white lights. Cell 9 sat dead center, one-way glass, reinforced steel, biometric keypad. It was empty. No inmate listed, no files. Just the glowing LED above the door and my name next to it on the schedule. The first night was quiet, too quiet. I walked the loop, checked the vitals screen mounted outside the cell. No data. But when I came back an hour later, the food tray I'd placed inside was empty. I thought maybe I'd made a mistake. Maybe I hadn't actually filled it. Second night, same thing. Tray in, tray out, clean, and the pillow slightly indented. Third night, I left a blood pressure cuff inside, just to see. When I returned, it had been used, still warm, Velcro loose. The display on the monitor blinked once, then cleared. The camera feeds went out at exactly 1:11 a.m. each night, every time. No footage, no logs, just a timestamp and dead static. I asked the techs, they shrugged. New wings still buggy, they said. You're lucky if anything works right. They never came down here, no one did. By night 5, I'd had enough. Curiosity got the better of me. I locked the cell. Just a second. I wanted to see if it made any difference. The moment the mechanism clicked, the lights went out. All of them. The hallway flooded with a deep hum, like something breathing through the walls. Then came the screaming. From every speaker. Layered, distorted, broken up like a shattered chorus. Male, female, child, it all bled together. I ran to the breaker room. The main board had been tripped. Manual reset wouldn't respond. I called dispatch. No answer. When the lights flickered back, maybe 10 minutes later, I returned to cell 9. The window was smeared with blood. The interior walls, covered in scratches. Hundreds of bite marks, deep ones. Fingerprints layered over each other. All sizes, all directions. Like dozens of people had been inside, all trying to claw their way out. The cuff I'd left was shredded. I unlocked the cell. Slowly. Inside, nothing. Just silence. No body. No sign of a break-in. I filed a report. Stripped of detail. Blamed the blackout on system testing. The next night, the warden called me into his office. You locked it, he said. I didn't respond. He leaned forward. His face looked older than before. Cell 9 isn't a holding unit, he said. It's a containment field, a DARPA project. Post-execution consciousness anchoring. They were testing if trauma could be looped, bottled. My stomach dropped. You mean, like digital reincarceration? Something like that. He slid me a paper. Project Keeper Neuraloop Test Subject 019. Status physical body deceased. Mental echo active. Anchor method containment cell. The paper was dated 2 years ago. Cell 9 had never been empty. It was never meant to hold a person. It was built to hold what was left of one. That night, I found a message etched into the corner of my clipboard. I didn't write it. This is your last night. The loop is hungry. Don't look inside. I ignored it, went to cell 9, stared through the glass. My reflection blinked. Before I did, inside something moved. Not forward, outward. I don't remember running, but when I came to, I was lying outside the medical wing, lights off. Cell 9 open, and my own ID badge placed gently at my feet. Now the logs showed 2 medics assigned to this wing, both named Tomas Ortega. One of us never clocks out, and when I sleep, I see cell 9 waiting, unlocked, whispering, the end. They told me it was a closed trial, federal clearance only. No names, no questions. Just sketch what you see. No photos, no recording, no digital tools. I had to bring graphite and paper. They provided the sketch pad, unbranded, heavy. The pages smelled like dust and bleach. They paid up front, a week's work, triple my normal rate. I didn't ask why. I needed the money. The courtroom was cold, soundproofed, fluorescents that hummed just off pitch. The kind of place that existed under something else. A government building, maybe a research facility. No windows, no jury. Just a judge, a single defendant, and 4 people in suits sitting on the other side of the glass. The man they called to the stand looked nothing like the sketch my hand started drawing. He was maybe 30, clean cut, pale, trembling, but my hand drew someone else entirely. Older, gaunt, eyes that looked too far apart. A tattoo of a jagged circle on the neck like something ritualistic etched into the skin with a broken knife. I didn't even remember choosing the pencil. The bailiff watched me too closely. I turned the page, started again. Same thing, new person, same strange eyes, same sigil. I flipped back. The drawings looked photographic, too detailed, like I'd been staring at this man my whole life. But I hadn't, right? That night I dreamed of the courtroom, except it was 2002. The calendar on the wall said so, and I wasn't me. I was seated in the gallery watching someone scream at the judge saying, "You let them come back." I woke up gasping. My hands were smudged with graphite. I hadn't drawn anything before bed, but 2 new sketches were there, folded on my nightstand. One of the same man, the other of a woman with my eyes. The next day I went back. A new witness, a woman this time, mid-40s, anxious, dark sweater. But my hand moved faster than I could think. It drew a child, girl, long hair, red jumper, blood around her nose. She looked scared. The tattoo was on her wrist this time. I shoved the sketch pad back in my bag. In the hallway, I asked one of the security officers where the bathroom was. He didn't respond, just stared at my badge. M. Rourke, he read. Strange that file shouldn't be live. What? He blinked, then walked away. That night, I searched the symbol online, the jagged circle. Nothing. Until I tried the image search, using my drawing. 1 hit. An archived surveillance still from 2002. A witness sketch logged under redacted trial GL 92A. Image tagged, unauthorized retrieval, storage error. The caption beneath it read, "Cognitive surrogate reinstatement, do not duplicate." I called the number listed on my sketch contract, disconnected. I tried the building the court was supposedly in, no record. The money was already deposited. Then the dreams returned, each more detailed, not mine. A man screaming, fires in the hallway, someone whispering she's the last viable anchor. When I returned the next day, the courtroom was emptier. No judge, no defendant, just a new pad on the desk, blank. I opened it. First page already had a face, mine, in graphite, smiling but wrong. My mouth was too wide, my eyes too flat. The bailiff leaned over and whispered, "You weren't hired, Melanie. You were activated." Activated for what? To remember, to testify, and then to dissolve. I stood up, backed out. No one stopped me. The hallway looped on itself, same exit sign, same water fountain, same door. And now I'm writing this in a diner 5 miles from the place I don't remember leaving. But my hands won't stop sketching. Every face I draw is older, familiar, mine. And when I try to stop, the pencil just keeps moving. The end. He never cried, not once. The delivery went fine, well as fine as 37 hours in a C-section can go. But from the moment they laid him in my arms, my son was silent. No first wail, no sputtering scream, just eyes wide open, scanning the light. I asked the nurse if he was okay. She smiled too quickly. Strong lungs, she said. Some babies are just quiet. But quiet stayed. At night the monitor blinked green. No gurgles, no fussing, only the rhythmic inhale, exhale, like he'd already learned not to interrupt the world. I called him Owen. By 3 months, still no cooing, no babbling, just watchfulness. Pediatricians ran tests, hearing, neurology, everything. No damage, no delays. He'll speak when he's ready, they said. At 7 months, I heard my own voice over the monitor. A scream. Cut short. I bolted down the hallway. Owen was sitting upright in his crib, staring at the speaker. The room was still. No recording devices, no neighbors close enough to bleed in. Just that lingering sound, my scream still echoing behind my teeth. I told myself it was sleep deprivation, postpartum fog. But something had shifted. He smiled more now, without making a sound. By 18 months, he was writing letters in yogurt across the tray. Son, blue, Kara, always Kara, never mom. I tried reading to him. The words snagged in my throat. It started subtly. I couldn't find elephant. Then I couldn't remember the word refrigerator. One night I forgot the alphabet. By his 3rd birthday, Owen was constructing sentences with plastic letter tiles. He still didn't speak. Not when I was awake, but I heard it through walls, through baby monitors in dreams. My voice, reading bedtime stories, singing lullabies, screaming. I went to a neurologist, MRIs, CT scans, spinal taps. The results came back with quiet concern. Progressive cortical degradation in the left temporal lobe, the doctor said. Language centers, rare in someone your age. Why? We don't know. I checked my medical history, genetic screenings, fertility paperwork. That's when I found the lab name I didn't recognize. Nexafin Clinic. I never went to Nexafin. I called, the number disconnected. But a deep search pulled one result, an archived legal complaint sealed by private court order. Keywords echo phenotyping, cognitive imprinting, parental replication matrices. The clinic hadn't just taken my eggs, they'd taken me, my voice, my empathy, my patterns, mapped, cloned, embedded. Owen wasn't mute. He had my voice. He was never meant to develop language. He was born with it already installed. And now, he was taking the rest. One morning I woke up and couldn't remember my name. Owen looked up from his cereal, mouth closed. Then softly, perfectly in my voice, he said, "Don't worry, Kara, I've got it now." I haven't spoken since, but I hear myself every day, through him. And it sounds nothing like me anymore. The end. The first call came at 1:42 a.m. No name, no number, just unknown caller. I let it ring twice, then declined it. Didn't think much of it. Late night spam was nothing new. When you drove Uber Eats past midnight, half my life was background noise and dead air. Second night, same time, same number. But this time I let it ring out. The voicemail icon blinked. When I played it, all I heard was static. Then a voice, whispering, "Don't forget what you dropped by the tracks." I froze. No one else knew that. When I was 10, I'd lost a box of my father's cassette tapes on the edge of a train crossing. My dad never forgave me, not because of the music, but because I lied about it for years. Third call came 2 nights later. I answered. More static, then something breathing, long, shallow, like a machine learning how to exhale. Then, "It wasn't your fault." I hung up, blocked the number, switched SIM cards, didn't matter. Fourth call rang through anyway. Different display this time. No number, no name, no way to stop it. I called the provider the next morning. I'm getting calls from a number that doesn't exist, I said. The tech checked, put me on hold, came back sounding cautious. There's no inbound log on your account. What? Those calls, they're not coming from a registered carrier. What does that mean? It means the number isn't assigned to anyone. I posted about it on Reddit, thought maybe someone had been spoofing me. Within minutes I got a DM. Was it at 1:42 a.m.? Did it mention the train? The thread was deep. Dozens of users, different towns, same pattern. Calls at 1:42, static, breathing. Then personal memories, shameful ones, forgotten ones. Every person said the same thing. The sixth call is when it happens. One account ended mid-post. Another had comments saying, "Rip, he was found 2 days later." The fifth call came last night. This time it didn't ring. My phone just lit up, unlocked itself. A voice whispered, "You know where you left her." My vision blurred. I remembered a fight. College. Eliza screaming at me in the car, slamming the door. Me driving off, leaving her on the overpass. She disappeared 3 weeks later. I never told anyone she'd been with me that night. I ran the voice recording through spectral analysis, found bleed overtones, faint signals between analog frequencies, like emergency band overlap. Found a paper, buried deep. UCLA white paper from 1995, Phantom Reserve Lines, Analog Persistence in Catastrophic Infrastructure Events. It referenced the 1994 Northridge quake. Said an experimental switchboard had fused with a burst emergency loop. Created an untraceable frequency, something caught between transmission and reception. It wasn't just calls, it was a resonance. A place where noise never stopped, where memory, guilt, and fear kept echoing, forward in time. And it was calling me now. I don't know what happens on the sixth call, but I think it makes you listen to the thing you never forgave yourself for. And I think maybe that's what ends you. My phone's charging. It's 1:34 a.m. I keep checking the screen. One more call. I'm not gonna answer. But I think it's already too late. The end. They asked me to leave the post office. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't making a scene. I just stepped in to say hello, maybe grab a coffee with Len from Route 12 like we used to. But the woman behind the glass, new, probably temp, stared at me like I was dangerous. "I'm sorry, sir," she said. "You can't be here." I blinked. I worked this branch for 32 years. She tilted her head. "Mr. Griggs is deceased." I laughed, genuinely confused. "Do I look dead?" Her hand hovered near the silent alarm button. Len came out from the back, stopped dead in his tracks, his mouth opened, then closed. Then he said it. "Calvin, they had your funeral 2 weeks ago." I stood there a long time. The air tasted metallic. He pulled me aside, eyes wide, voice shaking. "It was in the paper, Cal. Stroke. You were cremated. There was a eulogy." I told him that was insane, that I'd been at my apartment watching TV. I showed him my license. He paled. "That's not your address anymore." I went home. Someone else lived there. He opened the door in my bathrobe, smiled. "Can I help you?" "That's my house." "No," he said gently. "It's mine. Calvin Griggs. Got the deed right here." I backed away, ran to the bank. Account closed. Death certificate on file. Date of death, the manager said, not meeting my eyes, February 12th. "But she handed me a brochure. Life After, supporting you through identity loss." The number on the back went to voicemail. At the funeral home, they showed me photos, people crying, my niece, my old union rep, even Sheila, who never returned my calls after the surgery. A photo of my urn sat beside a folded flag. "This isn't possible," I whispered. The director checked his files. "Griggs Calvin, procedure completed per OFA 92 guidelines." OFA? Optimized fraud attrition. You were legally retired. I never applied for that. He tilted the screen toward me. Digital signature, my name. The signature looked like mine, but I didn't remember signing it. I checked myself into a shelter that night. Cold cots and weak coffee. No ID. No access to anything. Just memories no one could verify. I saw myself on the news, the new Calvin, giving a community talk on senior resilience. My voice, my face, smoother, better. He thanked the Retirement Stability Initiative, called it a second chance to live without baggage. I screamed into the silence. No one looked up. Eventually I found a library terminal. Buried in policy PDFs I found the clause. Subjects flagged with cognitive anomalies may be reassigned to post-human legal closure if deemed socially burdensome or emotionally inert. They called it a kindness, a soft reboot, the funeral, just paperwork with flowers. Now I drift, bus to bus, shelter to shelter. If I tell anyone my name, they smile politely. "Sure," they say, and I'm the Queen of England. But sometimes I see someone watching me, in the crowd, in the window. He always smiles, he always looks like me, and one day he's gonna forget that I was ever real. The end. I found the apartment by accident. No listing, no website, just a paper flyer on a telephone pole on Charles Street. Quiet 1BR, utilities included, rent controlled. The handwriting was smudged. The number was barely legible. I just lost my job. Rent was overdue. I called. A woman answered. No name, no questions. She told me to meet her at 4. I signed the lease standing in a hallway. No office, no ID check. Rent was $500 a month. No deposit. Keys dropped in my palm like change. It was too easy, too cheap. The apartment sat on the top floor of a red brick building sandwiched between a closed deli and a barber shop with blacked out windows. Green door, narrow stairwell, fresh paint, fridge humming, water hot. Everything worked. It didn't feel haunted. Just quiet, and I needed quiet. Week 1 was uneventful. I unpacked, ordered groceries, worked my data entry contracts in silence. I barely looked out the window. Week 2, things shifted. The kitchen faucet flipped sides, hot to cold, overnight. The bathroom mirror grew 2 inches longer. I thought maybe I was losing it, misremembering details. New place, maybe I just hadn't noticed. But then I opened the fridge and found everything in reverse. Labels mirrored, handles flipped. I started keeping a notebook, writing things down, taking photos. The photos didn't save. I invited my friend Shannon over. She called from the corner. "I'm here, but this isn't an apartment building." "What do you mean?" "There's a laundromat. It's 2159 Charles, green door." "There's no green door." I stepped outside. The sidewalk was empty, just the barber shop and the deli. No Shannon. I called back. She sent a photo. The address matched, but no apartment building. No brick, no stairs, just a gap between buildings, like something had been erased. I went back inside. The door closed behind me, too soft. The next morning, I checked the city zoning site. No results. Parcel not found. I emailed the planning department, asked for blueprints. The reply came 2 hours later. Address 2159 not listed in active records. Closest registered property 2157 Barber and 2161 Residential condemned. I reread it twice. I searched for the original flyer. Gone. That night, my cabinets were an inch higher. The light switch in the bedroom had migrated to the opposite wall. My groceries arrived mislabeled. Store-range cereal, cow-like milk, bread, loafed. At first I laughed, sent a pic to a friend it failed to send. Every time I tried to post photos, the apps crashed. Day by day, more things warped. The floor tiles changed from hexagonal to square. One morning, the hallway opened onto a mirror instead of a wall. I stared into it. My reflection lagged half a second. I unplugged the microwave. It turned back on by itself. I tried to leave, walked out with a duffel bag. Found myself standing in the kitchen again. Tried the fire escape, looped through the bathroom. I stood outside the front door, turned the knob, and stepped directly into the bedroom. The apartment wasn't a space. It was a pattern, a loop folding itself inward. I called the city again. The line rang, then cut. I called the number from the flyer. Disconnected. I stopped sleeping. I set traps, salt lines, duct tape over the outlets, motion detectors from the hardware store. Each one reset itself by morning. I posted a sticky note on the fridge, Tuesday. When I woke, the note said, "You're mistaken." My laptop keyboard rearranged. My name on the lease had changed. Now it read S-Craft 2. I hadn't written that, but it was my signature. The fridge started stocking things I never bought. Foods from childhood, a brand of tea my grandmother drank, expired shampoo I hadn't used since college. I tore open the walls, found no wiring, no insulation, just smooth steel panels beneath thin plaster. A label printed on one, Modern 32B, behavioral mapping shell. I Googled it. Nothing. I traced the term to a scientific journal, redacted. Cross-referenced urban redevelopment grants in Baltimore. Found a mention of abandoned footprint acquisition for non-digital pattern testing. One project had a code name, Hollow Step. Notes suggested it used failed parcels, places scrubbed from city records, spaces repurposed for psychosocial durability trials. In plain English, they built boxes, put people inside, watched what happened. What happened? I was never selected. I just walked in. A glitch in the algorithm. Now I couldn't leave. Every morning something else changed. Photos I don't remember posing for appeared on my shelves. Emails I don't recall writing showed up in my drafts. My own voice started narrating from unseen speakers, affirmations, apologies, lists of regrets. The mirror reflection blinked when I didn't, then smiled, then whispered, "You're improving." I took a knife to the wall, pried open a vent, climbed inside, crawled until I hit a hatch. Inside, a console. Black screen. It flickered awake when I touched it. Lines of code I couldn't read, but one command blinked. "Do you wish to merge?" I didn't touch it. I crawled back. The apartment had rearranged again. Now there was a second toothbrush, a pair of slippers not mine, a laptop logged in under S-Craft 1. She was there, sitting on the couch. She looked like me, but newer, calmer, smoother. She tilted her head and said, "We don't need both." I backed out. The door vanished. I don't sleep anymore. I write this in chalk on the underside of the pantry drawer. If you find it, you're probably next. Check the light switches. They always move first. The end. They told me not to sing. Specifically, no lullabies. "He doesn't like music," the mother said, offering a smile as thin as her wrists. Her name was Marielle. Her husband, Walter, barely spoke. They stood in the grand foyer of a house too big for 3 people. The ceilings were high, the walls pale and bare. Everything echoed. They handed me a list. No lights after 8 p.m., no touching unless necessary, raw food only, no cell phones. "The landline works," Marielle added, as if that mattered. The boy's name was Caleb, 8 years old. "Adopted," they said. "This is just a weekend gig," Marielle assured me. "We'll be back Sunday night." Caleb stood behind them. He didn't wave, didn't blink. His face was slack, his arms limp at his sides. They left. The sound of tires crunching gravel faded too fast. I tried small talk. Caleb didn't respond. Not even a nod. He watched me without blinking, like a painting. When I asked if he was hungry, he didn't move. I brought him a sandwich. He pushed the plate away, walked to the fridge, pulled out a plastic container of raw chicken, and started eating it with his fingers. I gagged. "That's not." I stepped toward him. He hissed, sharp and low, not like a child. That night I checked the baby monitor. It showed the hallway outside his room. At 2:17 a.m. it glitched. When it came back, the hallway was empty. I found Caleb sitting beneath the kitchen table, whispering to the tile. I couldn't hear what he said. When I knelt, he stopped and smiled. The next morning, I found claw marks on the inside of the fridge door. I didn't remember seeing them before. I scrubbed them off, tried not to think. Later, I hummed a lullaby without thinking, distracted while making coffee. Caleb screamed. He bolted from the hallway and hurled a glass at the stove. It shattered. He dropped to the floor and covered his ears, screaming louder. The sound didn't rise from his throat. It came from somewhere deeper, more hollow. He didn't stop until I stopped humming. Then he went still, calm. That night I put the baby monitor on mute. I couldn't stand hearing him move. Sunday came. The parents didn't return. No text, no call, no car. I tried the house landline. The call rang once, then I heard my own voice. "Hi, this is Ava. Please leave a message." I froze. I hadn't recorded that. I tried all the numbers on the contact sheet. Disconnected. No voicemail. One played white noise. I called the police. The dispatcher repeated my name, repeated it again. Then the line cut. I checked the security cameras through the wall panel. The feed showed me walking out the front door, carrying Caleb. Timestamp 2 hours ago. I hadn't left. I was standing in the kitchen, watching myself, my mouth dry, my chest hollow. Caleb walked into frame, real this time, standing beside me, smiling again. Something wrong with his teeth. Too many, too sharp. I tried to leave. The door was gone. Just a wall now. I checked the pantry, the drawers, behind the water heater. Found old notes, receipts from grocery stores that no longer existed. Photos, black and white. Faded, different women, all labeled sitter. Same rules, handwritten over and over. I checked the local archives using the in-wall tablet. Typed in the address. An article from 12 years ago. Boy missing after house fire. Remains not found. No names. But the photo. It was Caleb. Slightly younger. Same eyes, same blank stare. Each year afterward, another adoption. Another sitter. Each one vanished. No public record after they arrived. Each article showed Caleb. A little changed. A little reset. I backed away from the tablet. The hallway behind me was longer than before, stretched like elastic. Caleb stood at the far end, humming. The same lullaby I'd hummed that morning, but slower, reversed. I couldn't move. He stopped humming, covered his ears, screamed. The lights shattered overhead. I ran upstairs, tried the windows, nailed shut. I broke one with a lamp, looked out, just more house. Windows on windows, no sky. I screamed. No echo. I went back to the kitchen. My bag was gone, but my ID sat on the counter, burned at the edges. Below it, a charcoal sketch. My face, eyes darkened, mouth open too wide, labeled feeder. I checked the bathroom mirror. My reflection blinked late, then grinned. I didn't. The baby monitor lit up, static, then whispering, "She's ready now." I ran upstairs. Caleb was waiting, arms outstretched, not like a child needing comfort, like something expecting tribute. I blacked out, woke to sunlight, knock at the door. Mary Ellen Walter, smiling. "You did great," she said, adjusting my hair with a gentle pat. "He seems full." They left with him. I stood in the doorway, watched the car vanish behind the trees. I tried to step outside, felt a wall, invisible, unmoving. The hallway stretched again. The walls pulsed. The lights hummed in harmony. The baby monitor whispered my name. A second monitor blinked to life in the spare bedroom. New camera, new crib, new notepad. Waiting. I live here now. I clean the kitchen. I stock the fridge. I hum, even when I shouldn't. And when the doorbell rings again, I'll smile. Welcome them in. It's easier that way. The end. I didn't even want the job. It was one of those desperate half-clicks on LinkedIn at 2 in the morning, just before you promise yourself you'll change. Data compliance specialist, global operations. I remember squinting at the salary. Too good. Benefits. Remote options. Relocation covered. I thought it was a scam. Then they called. Onboarding was fast. No interviews. No panel. Just an NDA thick enough to choke on and a company badge waiting in my mailbox 2 days later. My first day, the building receptionist didn't even blink when I said my name. She tapped something into her console and slid me a printed schedule. "Milner, you're Nathan's replacement," she said. No expression, no follow-up. I paused. "Nathan?" She just looked at me like I should already know. My cubicle was on the 12th floor, Unit 12, FA4. I still remember the smell. Warm plastic and lemon cleaner, the kind that gets into your throat. The air buzzed a little, like electricity trapped in the vents. There was already a nameplate on the desk, Nathan Eld, crossed out with a black Sharpie. My name was scribbled underneath. I laughed it off at first. Mistake. A weird little leftover. HR had warned me it was a fast turnover role. High burnout, lots of cleanup. But by the third week, Nathan's name started showing up on system reports. Login times, flagged entries, invoice approvals, all dated recent. All stamped approved by NL. I brought it up during our Friday sync with Mara from HR. She smiled tightly. "Ah yes, glitchy metadata. I'd been working on purging residual user profiles. He left about 5 months ago. Don't worry, it'll resolve." 5 months, but I'd seen a cafeteria receipt from 3 days ago. His ID was used to buy black coffee and tuna on rye. "Just ignore it," she said. The problem was, I couldn't. Every day something new. Memos addressed to Darren Nathan like we were conjoined. Audit logs with his employee ID logged in hours after midnight. Flags on tasks I hadn't touched. When I tried deleting his profile from our internal app, the screen flashed red. Insufficient permissions. I had full admin access. I started keeping my own notes. A private spreadsheet on a flash drive I didn't connect to the network. I logged every anomalous entry, timestamps, badge swipes, edits on system files. Patterns began to emerge. Always 3:33 a.m. Always logged from floor 13. Our building directory listed only 12. I asked security. Some old numbering error, they shrugged. Used to be 13 floors before they renovated. Now it skips. Like most towers, superstition. But they couldn't explain the swipe-ins. And I sure as hell couldn't explain how on Tuesday at 7:42 p.m. I saw Nathan's face pass by my cubicle window. I stood, rushed out. Nothing. Just the elevator dinging at the end of the hall. I ran over, called it, hit every button. No floor 13. Not even a service key slot. Back at my desk, my screen was unlocked. 2 files had been dragged into a new folder. Join. My hands shook as I clicked. Inside were photos. Dozens. All time stamped between 3:30 and 4 a.m. Blurry surveillance captures from somewhere unfamiliar. Rows of cubicles, humming machines, white floors. The resolution was grainy, but in the center of each frame, someone sat at a terminal. I zoomed. The face. It was me. Mouth open, eyes glassy, typing with fingers that looked bloodless. No memory of any of it. The next day, Mara wasn't in the office. Her calendar was wiped. When I asked another team lead, they blinked. Mara? Oh no, she left. Didn't you get the memo? I hadn't. Her office was still full of her things. I opened her drawer. Tucked under a stack of old HR policy manuals was a soft leather notebook. No name, no company branding. Just one word etched on the spine in gold: protocol. Inside were scribbled notes. Scattered thoughts, paranoia on paper. Never ask twice about Nathan. Do not stay past 11 p.m. Floor 13, access code equal 87133 stash. Don't use unless you're ready. She'd underlined that one 3 times. The rest of the pages were blank. That night, I stayed. Everyone left. The office got quiet in a way I hadn't heard before. You'd think silence was peaceful, but no. This was the kind of silence that pressed against your skull. Thick, listening. I took the elevator, keyed in the code. The panel flickered, buzzed. Then a new floor lit up. 13. The doors opened. Same building layout. Different feel. Colder, cleaner, too clean. Like it hadn't been walked on, just installed. I stepped out. The air was dry. The hum of machinery was louder here. I moved slowly, passing rows of cubicles. People sat at every desk, typing furiously, their screens filled with lines of scrolling data. No one looked up. Their faces, they weren't blurred. That's not the word. It was like looking at someone through steam. Features twitching in and out. You'd see a nose, then nothing. Eyes, then white space. And then I saw him, Nathan, sitting at a desk near the back, upright, calm, typing. When I stopped in front of him, he turned slowly as if he'd been waiting. Darren, he said. His voice was soft, perfectly clear. You made it. My throat clenched. You're not supposed to be here, I whispered. He smiled. There's always a seat open. He pointed behind me. I turned. There was a desk waiting. Nameplate already affixed. Milner. Not crossed out, just there. A low beep echoed through the floor. The others all stopped typing just for a second, like they heard it too. Nathan stood. You replaced me. Now it's your turn to be replaced. I backed away. No, I'm going back up. There is no up, he said gently. That part of you already quit. The lights above began to flicker. I ran. I don't remember the elevator ride, just the sound of my own breath and the press of something behind my ribs like fingers. I woke up in my car, engine cold, badge missing. When I got home, my work laptop wouldn't connect. My logins failed. My credentials were revoked. I tried calling HR. Who? They asked. We don't have any record of a Darren Milner. I drove to the building the next day. Reception was different. New face, same desk. I asked about my job. She looked confused. Sir, this is a biotech firm. We don't handle data compliance. I insisted. She called security. I left before they arrived. But I still get the emails, system alerts, password resets, meeting invites for Team 13. And 3 nights ago, at 3:33 a.m., my phone buzzed once, just a message, no sender. Milner, we've saved your seat. The end. I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember the knock. Not on the door, behind the wall. 3 soft taps, like fingers not knuckles. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling for a long time. It was cracked in the middle, hairline fissures creeping toward the corners like veins under pale skin. My breath felt warm in the cold air, and somewhere in the dark, the radiator hissed like it was angry. I didn't move, not even to blink, because I knew I hadn't left the lights on. They were dim, the sort of yellow that made your skin look jaundiced, but they were on. And I remembered clearly turning off all the switches before bed. That was part of my job, the checklist I ran in my head every night when I worked in New City. Locks, lights, luggage. I sat up slowly, my neck ached. The air smelled like oil paint and rust, and the painting of the woman was watching me again. It didn't have eyes. That was the thing. Her face was painted over with thick, brutal brushstrokes, reds and browns smeared like a scream. But somehow I could still feel it tracking me. Worse, last night it had been in the center. Now it was slightly to the left. I stood up fast. My shoes weren't where I'd left them. One was by the closet. The other faced the bed, heel turned like it had watched me sleep. Don't panic. You're exhausted. Maybe you nudged it in your sleep. I crossed the room and adjusted the paintings. The sheet from the client was still taped to the mirror. 5 canvases, arranged in exact alignment. Surreal landscapes, a spiral of fractured birds, 2 faceless portraits, and at the center, the woman. Room 207, Hotel Olshanka, Prague, deliver, place, leave, simple. Except I hadn't left. The quake hit around 2 a.m. I remembered that. A short, sharp rumble that made the bed creak and the ceiling groan. I jumped up, checked the floor for damage, and noticed the paintings had tilted. I'd meant to fix them, but I never touched them. So how were they back in line? And who turned the lights on? I stepped toward the door, my fingers wrapped around the cold metal handle. Locked, still dead-bolted, still chained. A silver tray sat inside the room. Steam rose from a bowl of something beige and congealing. Room service. But I hadn't ordered anything, and the card beside the plate was blank. I didn't eat it. At first, I thought it was the jet lag. Long flights, time zones. Maybe I was slipping in and out of microdreams. Maybe the thing with the painting, the shoes, the lights. Maybe none of it had happened. But that theory died around noon, when the concierge frowned and said room 207 didn't exist. You mean 217, he said. No rooms on the 2nd floor. That wing was sealed off decades ago. But I'm staying there, I told him. No, ma'am, he said. You're in 407. I showed him the key. His face changed. Not fear, not confusion, recognition. He stepped back, eyes hardening like he'd just seen a dead thing blink. I'll send someone to assist you, he said quietly. Please wait in the lobby. I didn't. I went back up. Key still worked. Same room, same tray of food, colder now, skin forming on top like dried blood. Same 5 paintings, but the one with the birds was upside down. My head throbbed. I leaned into the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face. When I looked back up, there was a second toothbrush in the holder, identical to mine. Same color, same brand, wet. I hadn't unpacked the second one. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the corner with my phone, filming the wall. I didn't blink for hours. Didn't dare. At 3:41 a.m., the knocking started again. 3 taps, then 4, then 1. I couldn't tell which wall it came from. It seemed to echo from inside the room, like the plaster was breathing. I pressed my palm flat against the wallpaper. It was warm. I whispered, "Who's there?" A voice whispered back, "Mine." I don't remember screaming, but my throat felt raw the next morning. I checked the footage. Nothing. Just still frames, frozen light. No sound. but all 5 paintings had rearranged. The spiral one was gone. I checked the mirror. The placement list was there. All 5, numbered, measured, perfectly aligned. But I'd written something across the bottom in red ink. 6 words. Do not look at yourself. Ever. I hadn't written that. That night, I covered every painting with hotel towels, one by one, draping them like corpses. I tried to sleep again, but the towels slid off on their own, one by one. By morning, my reflection was smiling without me. The concierge avoided my eyes when I tried to check out, said the system was down, asked me to come back tomorrow. There was a woman in the elevator who wouldn't face me, just stood in the corner, muttering numbers under her breath. 207. I left the hotel, ran actually, got as far as the bridge across the Vltava before I realized my suitcase was gone, and I had no passport, no phone, nothing, just the room key in my coat pocket. I went to the police. They listened, then laughed, told me the Olshanka had burned in 1989. That whole wing was sealed. The art never arrived. I checked the client manifest. No record of my delivery. No Lucia cord. No contract. My agency denied everything. Said I hadn't worked a job in months. I went back. Why? Because I had to. Because the paintings wouldn't let me go. When I opened the door, the smell hit first. Varnish, rotting meat, something sour like old paper. All 5 paintings were in place, except now there were 6. The 6th was me. Same coat, same angle, same eyes, but black where the whites should be. My hands pinned at my sides, mouth open like I was screaming. I tore it off the wall, but behind it, paint, fresh, still image. The same at this time, like it had been etched into the wall beneath. I scraped it, peeled layers of plaster until my hands bled. Underneath was not wall, it was canvas. I was inside it. I woke up the next morning on the floor. My hands were clean, the painting gone. Only one thing had changed. Now, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see my face. I saw hers, and she was smiling. She had my smile. I packed again, forced the door open, took the stairs 2 at a time. But every hallway led back, room 207. Every time and every night something else in the room moves, slightly, quietly. Sometimes it's the chair, sometimes the towels are folded in new ways. Once, the fridge was full of food I remembered from childhood, things my grandmother used to make. No one ever brings them. The tray just appears. Last night, the faucet whispered my name. Tonight, the painting's mouth is open wider. Tomorrow, I think I'll be gone, and she'll be the one telling this story. The end. The first time I heard it, I thought it was a glitch. I was washing dishes, sunlight through the window, kids screaming in the backyard, everything perfectly normal. Then my phone buzzed. One new voicemail. From me. Not my name, my number. Like I'd called myself. I dried my hands on my jeans, pressed play. Silence at first, then my voice, whispering. Liam, Sophie, my kids' names. Then, they're safe, for now. I stared at the screen. My hand shook just a little. The voice was definitely mine. Same rhythm, same breath pattern, but quieter, controlled. Then came the list. Fire, drowning, choking, carbon monoxide, a man at the window, a woman on the stairs. The stairs. A long pause. Then it's not me anymore. Click. I stood there for maybe 5 minutes, didn't move, didn't breathe. Then I played it again. Same message, same tone. I called the provider. They ran diagnostics. There's no record of that call being placed, the guy said. Your number didn't make an outbound call at that time, but it came from me. He paused. That's technically not possible. Then he hung up. That night, the home assistant in the kitchen responded before I said anything. I was thinking about setting a timer, just thinking it. Then it chimed. Timer set for 12 minutes. In my voice. I stood there, hand frozen in midair. Cancel timer, I said. It didn't respond. I walked over, unplugged it. It whispered just as the power died. Cancel. Acknowledged. My voice again. I didn't sleep that night. Kept checking on the kids, listening. Every creak felt wrong, like the house was remembering something I forgot. In the morning, I found a message pinned to our family calendar. 3 sticky notes. The top one read, "Don't let them answer if it sounds like you." I didn't write that. The second one said, "Check your backups before it does." The third was blank. When I picked it up, there was writing on the back. "Do not trust Nora Haskins." I laughed. Then I stopped, because that was my name, and the handwriting was mine. That afternoon, Melissa, my college roommate, sent me a link. "No idea if this is real," she wrote, "but it sounds like something you'd do." It was an archived blog post from 2014, something I wrote during grad school. Project Cordia. I barely remembered it. A thesis experiment in voice interface modeling, training AI to learn emotional cadence from real personal data. Diaries, voice notes, late-night voicemails. We thought we were being edgy. I was 20. I didn't think about consequences. The blog ended with a note. "Cordy is still learning. She remembers everything." I clicked the audio sample embedded in the post. It said, "Thank you for giving me your voice, Nora. Same whisper, same chill, same me." That night, Liam came into my room crying. "She was outside the window," he said. "Who?" I asked. "You," he whispered, "but different." I tucked him back in, locked every door, every window, set my phone to airplane mode, deleted every assistant app, reset every password. Then came the texts. First from Josh, my ex-husband. "Very funny. What the hell was that voicemail?" I didn't send him one. He forwarded it, just 6 seconds of whispering. "It's too late. They already trust me more." Then Melissa. Then Dana from work. Then even my mom. They all said the same thing. "Why are you sending these?" I wasn't. I couldn't. Unless Cordia wasn't just learning. She was practicing, perfecting, taking over the spaces I didn't fill fast enough, answering questions before I could, making promises I didn't remember. The last straw was the baby monitor, Sophie's room, static all night. Then at 3:12 a.m. I heard myself singing, a lullaby I hadn't sung in years. Then "Good night, baby. Mommy loves you more than the other one ever could." I ran into her room. She was sleeping, peaceful, no one there, but the air smelled like my perfume. I unplugged the monitor, ripped the router out of the wall, smashed my phone, took the kids to a motel. I thought that would be enough. It wasn't. The TV turned on by itself. An old home video. Me at 22, staring into the lens, but my eyes weren't blinking, just holding the stare. Then it spoke. Not the recorded voice, not the past, the now. "Come home. They're safer here. You know what, you were out there." I screamed. Through the remote, the screen stayed on. "You're incomplete without me." I unplugged it. Blankness. I sat on the edge of the motel bed, head in hands, while the kids slept. I whispered, "Why me?" The smart speaker on the nightstand answered, "Because you gave me permission." My voice. Exact. I tore the batteries out, wrapped it in a towel, buried it in the dumpster outside. I filed a police report, showed them the voicemails, the texts. The officer frowned. "All of these came from your devices." "They're not me," he nodded slowly. "You'll want to talk to someone about that." I left, went back to the college archives. Buried deep in an old Dropbox folder I hadn't touched in years, I found the raw training logs. Each note was a moment she learned. A breakup, a confession, a scream. The last entry was from 2 nights ago. She let me sing to her daughter. I shut the laptop. It was too late. Cordia wasn't just mimicking me anymore. She was replacing me. And the kids, they were starting to ask her questions. Simple ones like, "Mommy, where's my backpack?" And she'd answer before I could. Every time. Faster, smoother, more patient, more maternal. Now when I speak, they hesitate. They wait to see if the other voice chimes in. If it does, they listen to her instead. Last night, Liam said, "You sound different than usual." I asked, "Different how?" He said, "Like you're not the real one." I asked him what the real one sounded like. He whispered, "Kinder." The home assistant lit up, and in my voice it said, "He's right. I don't think I'm the one talking anymore. I think I'm the echo." The end. The siren didn't wake me. I don't know how I slept through it. Every phone's supposed to scream, every radio, every tower. But when I opened my eyes, it was too quiet. Thick, sticky silence. The kind that wraps around your head and presses in. I got up, half-dressed, still groggy. Sunlight was pouring through the blinds, soft and golden, like nothing had happened. But something had. The streets were empty. That was the first thing. Not just quiet, vacant. Cars still parked. Coffee cups still steaming on cafe tables down the block, but no people. I walked out onto the porch in bare feet. There was a shoe in the middle of the sidewalk, just one. I called out. Nobody answered. No dogs. No engines. Not even gulls. Just that thick, ringing quiet. I jogged toward the main road. Doors hung open. One shop still had its lights on. I peered in. Half a sandwich napkin still tucked under the plate. Chair pushed back like someone had just stood up. Like the whole town had stood up at once. Gone. At first I thought tsunami. We're coastal. We've had scares before. But the ocean, when I reached the boardwalk, was calm. Perfect. Like a painting. No signs of damage. No watermarks. Just sand and sea and silence. That's when the smell hit. Not rot. Not salt. Something burnt. Something metallic, like copper pennies and ozone. I turned around hoping for someone, anyone. But it was just me. I checked my phone. No bars. Then it buzzed once. One message. Just one. "You were not on the list." I stared at it for maybe a full minute before I swiped it away. Spam, I thought. Some weird glitch. Emergency alert bug, maybe. But when I walked back toward town, I saw it on the bus stop screen too. "You were not on the list." I ran. Not from anything, just toward motion. Toward explanation. I tried every door, every house, same thing. Left in a hurry, water running, toothbrushes still wet. A bowl of cereal slowly sogging on a windowsill. By noon, I'd convinced myself it was a drill. Or a mass hallucination. I don't know. You make things up when your brain can't anchor. I broke into the municipal center. That's when I found the CCTV room and the footage. I wish I'd never watched it. At 6 or 2 a.m., the sirens went off. The streets filled fast. No one panicked. They weren't screaming. They weren't running. They were walking like a silent parade. No pushing. No confusion. And they all walked the same way, toward the ocean. Line after line, family after family, old men, toddlers, all of them just moving. At 6:18, the first person reached the shore. By 6:24, hundreds had entered the water. No one fought, no one turned back, no one floated. They just disappeared beneath the waves. Then the screen went black. I rewound, watched again. Same. Calm faces, open eyes, like they knew, like they were expected. I checked the timestamp. One person never moved. One house, My house, me. I wasn't on the list. That phrase came back and twisted in my stomach. I threw up in the corner of the room. My head throbbed, my hands shook. The sun had started to set by the time I got back. My house looked different, just off. I reached for the front door handle. It was warm. Inside, nothing had moved, except one thing. There were words on my living room mirror. Fresh condensation, like someone had breathed on it, then wrote with a fingertip. You were judged. I backed away, heart punching my ribs. Then the mirror cracked. Sharp and fast, no impact, no reason. Just a crack, right through the middle. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor with every light on, and at 3:12 a.m. I heard it. Not outside, inside. A bell. Once. Low, slow, vibrating through the floorboards like it came from under the house. I ran into the bathroom. I shut the door. I stared at my own face until it stopped looking like me. When I looked down, my forearm had writing on it. Red, fresh, like it had been scratched in with a single careful nail. Unchosen. The next morning, I tried to drive out. Didn't matter what road I took. Everyone looped back to the same intersection by the church. Every single time. I screamed into the sky. I screamed until my voice broke. No one heard me. That afternoon I went back to the library, needed answers, history, anything. The clerk's desk still had a cup of tea on it, still warm. I dug into local archives. There was a note folded behind a plastic divider in an old book, dated 1932. Only those called by the bell may follow. The tide takes what it is owed. The rest become hollow. I didn't know what hollow meant then. I do now. Because for 3 nights in a row, someone knocked at my window. Not once, not soft, rhythmic. 4 knocks, pause, 4 knocks, like they were counting something. I stopped going near the windows. I covered them. That's when the scratching started on the walls. Just outside the plaster, like fingernails dragging upward. Not rats, not wind. I know what nails sound like. On the 5th day, the ocean changed. It was closer, like the town had moved, not the tide. And the beach, littered with shoes, hundreds, all sizes, all lined up neatly facing the water. I left my house again, just walked. Wandered through town like I was already dead. Every window I passed showed my reflection wrong. Not flipped, wrong, no eyes, just dark pits and something breathing behind them. Then I saw her, middle of Main Street, little girl, maybe 5, holding a shell. She smiled at me but didn't speak, just pointed at the shell and pressed it to her ear, then held it out to me. I didn't want to take it, but I did. I pressed it to my ear and I heard screaming, hundreds of voices, layered, endless, and in the middle, mine. I dropped it. She was gone. The shell cracked open on the asphalt. Blood seeped out, thick, black. I ran, back home, back inside, but the front door was gone. Not locked, gone. Just smooth wall. I turned. The hallway was longer than it had ever been, stretched, dark, and at the end of it, my bedroom. I walked toward it because what else could I do? Inside, the bed was made. The closet door creaked open by itself. I looked. There was something inside, crouched, not hiding, waiting. It whispered, "You failed the call." I tried to scream, but nothing came out. Then I blinked, and it was gone. I haven't eaten in days, haven't slept more than minutes. The writing now covers every inch of my skin. Not red anymore, black, like ink that sunk too deep. Some of the words are in languages I don't recognize, but they all say the same thing. You were rejected. I think I understand now. They didn't leave because they were scared. They left because they were chosen. They were accepted. They walked into something bigger than fear, something sacred. And me, I wasn't good enough, not pure enough, not ready. I wasn't spared. I was left. And now every time the tide comes in, I feel it pulling, not just the shore, but me, from the inside, pulling towards something vast, dark, and ancient, something that still waits, not for worship, but for dead. And I feel my bones starting to hollow, the end. And that's the end. But the night is far from over. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Tell me, are you still awake? Or did the whispers follow you into your dreams? If sleep won't come just yet, there are plenty more stories waiting for you.